Public Safety Commission meeting for December 2023. Call this meeting to order at 7 p.m. We have a quorum present with Commissioners Dickinson, Commissioners Nava, and Commissioner Warby, and myself, Commissioner Cruz. So, item number 2, I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
And no objections? All right, then the agenda is approved. We'll move to item number 3, public input. Public is invited to present petitions, make announcements, or provide other information to the commission that is relevant to the scope of authority of the city of Blue Lake and is not on the agenda. The commission may provide up to 15 minutes for this public input session. To ensure that each individual presentation is heard, the commission will uniformly impose time limitations of 3 minutes to each individual presentation. The public will be given the opportunity to address items that are on the agenda at the time the commission takes up each specific agenda item. So at this time, if there's anybody for public input, please step up to the podium and state your name.
Ken Sawatsky, I found that safety issues are handled much better in third world countries than they are here in America. I spent a lot of time down in Mexico, and they have a police department and presence which is probably 10 times what ours is here. Very functional. The income of the officers is supplemented by ticketing people, or they don't actually ticket. They pull you over if you run a stoplight, if you're driving too fast, if you have an infraction on your car. And the process is they will take your license and you exchange 200 pesos or $12 to the officer, and then he gives you your license back. Very effective. It's total lacking here. We don't have law enforcement that does any of these things. And it's so interesting to me that a third world country like that is functioning. Now, you may say that's graft, but it's just the way things work. But laws are enforced. And unfortunately, they're not here. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Sometimes the process we have in the United States has failed, but a country like Mexico seems to be functional. So thank you for my opportunity to speak on out of area safety issues.
Thank you, Ken. Please feel free to grab a chair. There's more sitting right over here if you'd like. Right. Go ahead. Right now we're in public comment, so we're taking turns coming up to the podium.
So I'm here because I got the little invite on my door about traffic safety.
Can you
and
state your name, please?
My name's John Gammon.
Thank you, John.
I live on I Street, about a block past the laundromat where the traffic gets up to speed. And I've been a Blue Laker since 2001, but I've just lived in this house since the 1st of May. And I'm both a pedestrian and a bicyclist, and I ride my bike and I walk all over what I call the top of the hill there, uh, the hill that we start to climb up when we leave Del Arte. Anyway, I have no problem. I don't hear well. I don't see well. I don't feel threatened walking around the streets. I don't feel like the cars are going too fast. My biggest fear are silent cars that are electric. But I happened to be out on the streets today, and I took note of two things. I was down on Charlton Road going the correct way, turning on Charlton Road, I think. Anyway, the street that goes past the skating rink, you get down to the end, you got the city turned it one way. I'm sitting there getting ready to turn left and go get gas, and one of our Blue Lake garbage trucks passes me and takes the street the wrong way all the way down. I'm going like, well, this is fine. All the people that use this street like me for 20 years going two ways, and it's the city itself that goes the wrong way, and you can get away with it probably most of the time because we don't have any enforcement, as the gentleman mentioned, and I don't think we can afford enforcement. So I implore you not to put in laws that require enforcement that we're not going to ever have. So if you want to slow down traffic on I Street, you should put in stop signs or speed bumps. I don't like either one of them. It's going to create more smog. I walk out on that street and I see a lot of times 4 or 5 cars a minute go down that street. Even 5 minutes go by and not see one car. It's paved for cars. It's made for cars. The creek divides the town. It's the major road cutting back into town after they've had three options to cut into town after they get off of 299. But it's the first option. And a lot of people probably go down it because it doesn't have speed bumps like H Street. And H Street used to be like I till somebody moved here from Berkeley and said, "Whoa, these cars are going too fast." So I've been around Blue Lake since 2001. Blue Lake loves to make laws that no one will ever enforce and are unenforceable. So I think things are fine with I streets, traffic lanes. Uh,
Thank you, John.
What's one other thing besides the garbage truck was the great big forklift that's housed clear out in the gravel through town, 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, middle of the day. So that's what I consider to be safety issues, not the speed of the cars coming down High Street. And I'm sorry, thank you for the time. I'm gonna go back home and watch the rest of Monday Night Football.
So can
Thank
I
you.
just clarify,
John.
John, can I just clarify, the city doesn't operate the garbage company. That's a private company. And so I will get a hold of Blue Lake Garbage to talk about that.
It's all about it.
Yeah.
That's maybe they're saving the city gasoline, but
No, it's not us.
Anybody else for public comment? Go ahead, step up and state your name.
Hey guys, I'll jump in. My name is Julie Christie. Swiping in from Farm Chores. I'd like to thank Justin right off the bat for being here. He's an asset to our community that I think we underappreciate. So thank you again, Justin, for being here. And I'd like to thank Kim and our other newest appointed.
He's not here.
He's not here. Okay, I'm looking
not-
around the
I'm
room.
not sure
I'm
if he's-
sorry. I'm without the room. But thank you
Yeah.
for coming on to our Public Safety Commission. That means a lot. We need the support here in our city with our commissions. I'm just gonna go back on just some other little things that I brought up in the past, just some lighting stuff throughout town. One thing I always noticed between the roundabout and the school is just a little bit of lighting issue there. I know there's that little jurisdiction, you know, like there with county and city. But I just know it's always really dark there at night, and I see a lot of pedestrians walking at night from the casino to town, and you can't see them very well. Just saying. And there's other areas around our new fire hall as well that have corners that prior to it being established there were always really dark. That would be like the adjacent left-hand corner going to the trailer park, and the right-hand side kind of going towards 4th Street. And besides that, I really appreciate Rudy being here and our public. Thank you.
There's a chair over here if you'd like. Thank you, Julie.
So we get to comment on
Anything that's not on the agenda.
Greenwood and, so the stuff that's on here, you get a chance.
Yeah, at the time we take up that item, I'll give you a chance to speak at that time too. Anybody else like to comment? All right, then let's move on to item number 4, introduction of new commissioners. We have Kim Warby as a new commissioner. She just took on the opportunity to join us. And I believe our other position is not filled at the time, right?
No, it is. Dan just wasn't able to be here tonight.
Okay, so we have another commissioner, Dan Flores, who will be joining us next time, I guess. Welcome, and
Thank you.
we'll hit the ground running here. So, all right, so item number 5, review and approve meeting minutes from November 2023. If everybody had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Okay. And is there any objections to the way they are presented? Then, if not, I will take, yes,
Take public comment on minutes? Sorry, I have some corrections.
okay. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
Elise Scapani, I spoke at the last meeting and there's a couple things where I misquoted. So on page 2, under public comment, the last line of that paragraph states the sheriff will respond to 911 calls, but is not obligated to stop crimes. I believe my statement was that the sheriff stated that he would respond to 911 calls in the case of a violent crime and would stop the crime, but was not obligated to make any arrests or investigate any crimes.
okay.
And on the next page, it says, the sheriff's service absorbs the liability. Should say that the sheriff will absorb the liability for law enforcement, which means that we don't have that liability. And then it should say Ferndale budgeted $650,000 for their police department, rather than $650. Thank you.
Thank you, noted. Are there any more changes to the minutes? Right, with these changes noted, then we will take a motion to approve these minutes for November.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from November.
Okay,
I will second that.
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Okay, the minutes are approved. So item 6, the City of Blue Lake Truck Route Plan Review, Discussion and Recommendation.
Great. So Mike Hogan is here tonight. Mike is the city engineer. He works for SHN Consulting Engineers. He's been the city engineer for quite a long time, and we have been working for, gosh, at least 3-4 years on on the city's what we call the truck route. And it's a little bit of a change from, historically the Greenwood to Hatchery, was a much more influential truck route than it is today. It has a lot less truck traffic than we historically did when we had numerous mills and things taking place within the community and out to Corbell and a lot more logging up the 5,000. But we still have a designated truck route. And as we all know, there's a lot of intersecting uses on that route. It goes right by the school, goes right through the city, down through recreation areas. And as our community has changed a little bit over the years, more, changing from kind of an industrial town to more of a recreation focused community, the needs of the community and the route itself have changed. We have a very wide, straight route right in front of the school down to City Hall. There aren't a lot of breaks along that route, and there's a lot of different uses taking place in that area when it comes to the school. The fire department, people coming into City Hall, people walking, biking, riding horses, kids trying to get to school on insufficient and undersized sidewalks. We have sidewalks that have power poles in the middle that cause pedestrians and people to have to go out into the street to get around those. So lots of problems associated with Greenwood as we're starting to kind of increase our usage for different types of uses in the community. So we've been working for a number of years on an improvement project, and we started this process through community scoping. We've worked with the school, we've worked with the fire department, we've done outreach to the trucking company. Scott's here; he was part of some of our initial outreach to talk about the trucks, what their needs were, how can we create a situation that the trucking industry can prosper while at the same time we're creating safe spaces for all user groups. So we're at a point now where the city has been funded up through the design and engineering phase, and we've now been funded for construction as well. We're at about 60% on our plans right now. So we have a 60% draft plan set for the community to look at tonight. We'll be presenting this to all of our commissions and doing more outreach as well. But we wanted to bring it here tonight to the Public Safety Commission to use this as an opportunity to get some feedback, present the ideas. This has been a pretty long process. Unfortunately, during COVID, we were right in the middle of kicking off our community outreach when everything kind of got shut down. So in the past, we would have done a lot more public meetings and outreach, and we had to kind of change that up a little bit to facilitate this project moving forward, but also facilitate engagement. So we did a lot of project boards. We put stuff on websites. We had meetings at the Grange. We left designs out. We left project boards out to get feedback. So we had to kind of change things up a little bit, but I think we got a lot of good feedback. And I think there's a lot of obvious problems, especially with Greenwood being kind of our first segment for construction. So Mike is going to go over where we're at tonight. The goal is to get this project out to for bid in the spring and go to construction in the summer. We've been funded $1.6 million, so it's a pretty good project for Blue Lake. It's pretty exciting to think about having these improvements while also creating kind of a gateway coming into town. Coming into Blue Lake, it's really picturesque. It's a really pretty entry. So looking also at how this design can enhance that while at the same time creating safe spaces for all users. So I think, Mike, you're going to be able to pull that up on the TV too.
The real quick, just to not fall in my name is, we've been doing a lot of outreach about traffic safety in Little Lake. So we did our local road safety plan that we worked on a year ago. We also met with New Diamond and some other folks as well. We talked about, and that was all Blue Lake. This is a subset, the truck route. And I want to just highlight, before I get into the plans, I want to highlight a couple of our challenges, especially with Greenwood, because that is in the schools at the beginning of town. We can't really reroute our truck traffic. So kind of acknowledging a reality that Greenwood is our truck route. We're not moving the truck route. And we do have a limited right of way. And we looked into trying to underground poles. We worked with PG&E for a couple of years. It's pretty expensive. There's some money, but not a lot. And that ended up being more of a dead end for us. Fortuna, they cautioned us too that it actually cost them a lot of money to underground some of the poles that they did do. So there's some hidden costs that you're unaware when they embarked on that program. So dealing with the poles, how do we limit that right away? Still try to maintain some parking in front of houses and have access for the kids that's safe. So we early on we decided not to do bike lanes to encourage like the conflict with the kids in the street and the truck traffic. So we've gone with widening the sidewalk on the west side of town, making a wider sidewalk. And because of poles, there's still some conflicts that we're having to do bulb outs, and you'll see that when I go through these plans that we're having bulb outs, but it's really to get around the guy wires poles to have safe passage for the kids out there right away for that and ADA accessibility. So we pull some stuff up here.
Could you define limited right away?
Well, it's 4 feet for the ADA.
Maybe it might be comprehend. Thank you.
It's back on, or do I have to?
Oh.
Okay, so so this is our gateway into, people see this from the angle that you're at. So we know we just had a rear end accident right in here last week. And I just want to highlight again that we don't have control on Blue Lake Boulevard. We have been working with the county, Colin Matson, but
We didn't do anything actually in Blue Lake Boulevard, so we're dealing with what's in our right of way. I did talk to the county. We did think about potentially a roundabout similar to what we have coming through Charlton, but we just don't have the area to put a roundabout that accommodate all the traffic, the truck traffic. So kind of like what's painted right now, we're looking at it would kind of be similar to what's at the roundabout. So again, you want cars because cars still kind of blow right through that, but it'll allow trucks to track through that. It's still mountable. Does have some bumps and we did traffic. We did the turning radius software. So if you want, I can go over that with you and Peppy to go through and kind of show you all the tracking that we did on some of these features too. So as Mandy said, we just kind of wrapped up our 60% and we're just kind of going through this outreach because I'm trying to wrap up our plan set here to submit to Caltrans by the end of January. I think some of you participated. We brought in Dan Burden. So Dan Burden does traffic calming throughout the country. He's an expert. He actually worked in Blue Lake over 20 years ago. In the late 90s, he came through Blue Lake, and then we brought him back out actually through a grant through the TAC. We were able to, for HCOG, we were able to bring Dan back out. So Dan walked the truck route with him. We gave him at that time, it was kind of our concept for how we're going to deal with the truck route. He walked it, he reviewed our plans, had comments, marked them up. And so kind of going back and forth, working with Dan after he walked this is kind of an outcome of that process. So again, we're looking for some kind of mountable feature as you come around the corner. Also our gateway, this is like a stamped concrete. It would be like a dyed brick, just like 2 feet wide, fairly narrow. So again, I can't really do any islands just because of the tracking for the turning radius for the vehicles, but it's more of a visual feature. So
it's mountable.
Yeah, it's mountable. In fact, it's flush. So as you brought up, Kent, in law enforcement and all those issues, those are hard. So what we're trying to do is engineer things that don't look wide. So that the whole concept that we're going through is how do you visually narrow down this so it doesn't seem like a speedway. So those are some of the features that we're trying to engineer in. So this really wide line that you're seeing, that's actually a 3-foot gutter pan radius. So the gutter pan, you think of a curb and a sidewalk and the concrete that kind of is on flush with the street. That's called the gutter pan. Typically 12, 18 inches. We're going 3 feet because visually this between the center line and the edge of that is only 8 feet. So that seems visually really narrow of asphalt on these little neck down features. It's really 11 feet, but visually it's 8 feet. So with the asphalt, it seems narrower. You want to stop, you want to slow down. So as you come into town, we kind of have these bulb outs, and the whole intent is try to neck that down. I got a couple options that I'll talk about here in a minute. I'll flip through. Deanne with the school is happy that we've got some kind of feature here because everyone parks in front of the stairs. She doesn't want people parking in front of the stairs. And then the buses or the drop off will be in here. I think long term with the school, they would like to get money and like make that a drive through, but that's some years out. We were sharing grant horror stories of how long it takes to get these things funded. But in the meantime, we're going to have to work with just kind of sheltering that for the drop off. And again, this narrow section as you come in, and this will probably be landscape, so you put like a tree in here for part of the gateway. So you have shrubs, you don't have sight distance, so you want a tree so you can see people, but it still visually kind of narrows that down. So this is just a concept which I'll flip through a couple. So we have, when we talk about the fire hydrant being in the street, one of the things that we're working on too is we're going to work with USDA and get some money to replace the water laterals on Greenwood. So you've probably seen, Glenn, we've had some water lateral failures. So before we make this big investment on Greenwood, we're going to replace the water laterals. We're going to do some utility work as well. That'll be separate from this, but we're going to get that out ahead of this project. But because we're going to be doing some work with the water system, we're going to take out a couple of the standpipe, the old fire hydrants that are just like the 4-inch pipe. It's not the hydrant. So those are some obstructions, and we potentially can relocate the hydrant so you can just have a 3-way and put it in the bulb out, or I'll show a couple others we're going to move it. So this is one thing that we talked to Deanne as well, and we're talking to you guys today. Like, do you have a preference because you lose some parking? So one thought instead of two separate bulb outs is just make this one extended bulb out features. You come into town because they got to deal with that, or I can narrow that up and I can show where I shift it this way, and so because I'm trying to get this neck down, so I the feature where ideally I want something here, so that would be this option where you still have the neck down where you come in and you relocate the hydrant to here, and that would be hardscape, and that would be landscape. So that's one thing to think about as we kind of narrow that in of what we want to do on that. So I want to go through a couple details, and then well, this one does not have the figures that have highlight of what that looks like. Darn.
We have them pass it around, I guess.
What's that?
We have a couple that if we wanted for the public to pass around, so we just give them.
Yeah. So they're just showing what a drive behind curve looks like and what the stamped concrete hardscape looks like on the crosswalk. That was just some pictures that this is one we worked with the school the other day. Yeah, so here's a walk behind when we talk about this walk behind driveway. Again, that goes with the ADA access. So that's again a 4 foot. So we're talking to the school about encroaching on there and at least in the walk behinds. So one other thing we're going to talk about the crosswalks. We're going to do this is the existing crosswalk right now that has that at school. And the other crosswalks actually on the other side of the intersection, we're going to shift it to this side. And these will be raised. Speed tables, crosswalks will be elevated. So, and it'll be the lower height. It's like the 3-inch, not the higher one. So again, for when you got low boys and you got trucks going through, but still it'll, as you kind of come into the school zone, we want folks to slow down. So that's the intent of these raised crosswalks as we are in front of the school. So this is C Street, and that's B Street. And this is the access to the bus barn.
And I think a lot of the modeling was based upon Scott, like the longest low boy that you guys have coming in. I think we took that figure to be kind of like the most extreme without, the pilot cars and stuff.
Yeah, because you guys still go through a couple times a year to go to Green Diamond, don't you? Pull out a yarder.
Oh, definitely, and for our own spots or your ready mixes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll comment in the end here.
Yeah, and like I said, if you want to sit down and I can show you the tracking on the trailers, we can go through that. I don't have that with me tonight, but
Sure.
I figured that'd be a separate sit down anyway. So then just when we're giving some examples to show Deanna what that might look like, so you could potentially work with the school. They can do some art feature in between the piano key, so we put that in, and if they want to do something with the school and coordinate. This does get a lot of wear, but something they could repaint periodically. And then again, we're getting some bulb outs here. Why I have a bulb out on this location is because you see the pole and the guy wire, and I can't do that. So the whole purpose of this is so people can get by these obstructions that are in the street or currently in the sidewalk. So I'm doing some blow ups right now, and then I'll kind of go through all the plans. Does anyone have any questions so far?
I have a quick question. Regarding the bulb outs, is it possible to do those bulb outs instead of out into the street? Get permission from the schoolyard or the property owner to do those on their property so that we don't have those extreme narrowing? My problem with the process is you have your large curve in there coming out there. Perceptually, people are going to pull out probably out and not go across that. They're going to go out into the travel lane or the opposite lane possibly, if they're going to adhere to your not driving on that, which is normal process. So those are just a concern you might consider is having your bulb out for your guard wires. Hopefully the city with the school would be willing to go ahead and do that for safety.
Well, I'd like to point out the key thing we're trying to do is visually narrow that down. Even though physically I'm narrowing it down to some extent, I'm still maintaining 11 feet travel lane. But we're trying to visually neck that down.
I understand the objective. But I'm saying it actually may be unintended consequences of causing.
Well, and actually that recommendation came from Dan Burton. That he said why that. Yeah. This is so the limits of this first phase. So again, we got funding for design for the whole truck route, but we only have funding for basically Greenwood to just right out here to the intersection, right out front here. So one of the other concepts that Dan was bringing out. So one of the things that we really struggle with is just this poor sight distance coming around the corner. This gets a lot of use. You can still get out here on a First Ave. So we're thinking of at least temporarily doing some planters to close that off. So you don't have this conflict of anyone trying to go across. Because again, you can't really see traffic coming in this direction. The sight distance is really poor for anyone trying to go across to go down here. So we want to avoid that conflict. So it's temporary and we can see how it goes. So it's a fairly low cost to put some planters in and see how that behaves. Again, we're kind of set with our geometry. So that was one concept that came up. You can see kind of again the stamped concrete. So when we don't have the raised crosswalks, we're only doing those by the school right now. We'll do more of a stamped concrete. So out by the post office is like a thermoplastic. It wears out over time. So we're going to go with a dyed concrete that's stamped that looks like brick that'll stay. And not
Those are the ones in Arcata they use all the time. I've seen Arcata.
it might be. So yeah, and then just here's some examples of some pictures showing what that looks like. But yeah, it'll wear.
Their expected life is like 7 or 8 years from what I've observed in Arcata, depending on the traffic volume.
The concrete typically holds up pretty well on roads. I mean, Caltrans uses that for their highways, for their like I-5 is concrete versus asphalt, so concrete's going to last
That's
longer.
what I've observed as far as functionality.
Okay, well, I'm just saying that concrete costs more and it lasts longer. I don't know, Scott, if you want to comment on the difference between concrete and asphalt.
Screw tied. It's not a.
Caltrans has almost gotten rid of all that concrete on I-5.
All right. Well, is that from spalling or was there a concern on?
Yeah, it's tougher maintenance.
Okay. But for the crosswalks, you're looking at the concrete. The paint, especially the thermoplastic, doesn't hold up with our traffic that we've had. Tightening this up a little bit. Again, that's kind of another stamped concrete median, just a 2 foot wide. That's drivable, but again, it narrows that down on how to handle this corner, that intersection. Got some bulb outs. I know this one's pretty tight. This is mostly concrete. That's fairly narrow. So trying to make that, just slowing down, making sure that they track and trucks can go here. I know that you do see rub marks on that, but that's usually associated with speeds as well.
That's a really sitting at City Hall, we watch all day long that corner, and it's the amount of speeding and lane cutting that takes place there is it's really concerning. It's something that really needs to be addressed. I mean, we've actually had trucks that have tipped over on that corner.
This is outslope, so
Yeah.
this is higher than that.
We've had trucks go up on the sidewalk on the other side. So it's a really dangerous intersection that really needs to be something physical to slow traffic down there.
Maybe you haven't gotten to it yet, but any consideration to the pedestrian activated flashing lights?
No, we're gonna have those traffic lights put in. I've been trying to get money. I didn't have enough money when we put this in to get that. We do have it up by the school.
Yeah.
So it'll be the same thing. It'll be solar and they're radio controlled. So if both go flash,
Yeah.
it's like a sign and
Yep.
you can see the sign flash. Those seem to perform well.
At night, especially.
All right, let me go to the detailed one. So there's still a lot of comments and notes. This is again kind of the back and forth that we're having with Dan. We're leaving a lot of these comments as we're trying to resolve some questions. So this is more of I had a blow up of what we were showing. All right, so you again just hit the highlight features, kind of the neck down as you come into town, raised crosswalk. So that's C Street. This is B Street right here. And then how this is split, this is called a match line. So this is actually the continuation of the street. There's B Street and A Street. So these are just notes where we may have crosswalks or not putting a crosswalk there. We already talked to the school about that. Here across from A Street, we're doing a bulb out, but again, it's because I've got a guy wire and a pole is what's facilitating getting, for kids to be able to walk and get past that. We're going like it was a 6.5 foot overall. The goal is a 6+ foot sidewalk that we're trying to reach, so a fairly wide sidewalk. Same thing here. I got a pole here. I got a guy wire and a pole. So that's caused that feature. Let's see. Okay. So now we're at First Ave. We're doing the crosswalk. We factored in with the fire department how they come out with they put the older fire truck, so they kind of have that there. So we wanted to keep the crosswalk out to the side and just to get some protection and a bulb out to get out into the street. Here we're just trying to neck down. I might even shift this one down a little further, but again, we're just trying to get, as you enter Greenwood, we're trying to neck that down to slow people down. That was one of the big features that we were getting at. And then let me just. So now we're on Railroad Ave. So, we already have one existing planter here. We're going to try and get one matching on the other side. Actually, this will be a sidewalk because I got a guy wire pole again on that north end of the sidewalk. So people can facilitate getting around that. This is pretty tight. The building's like right on the corner. So we're, to get the ADA, we're getting the directional ADA in there. This will have a bit of a bulb out. And that is, I think I got a fire hydrant. They got a lot of obstructions in here. So this one's actually pretty tough to work that in. I got a drain in here too, but we'll get our drainage to go across. But I'm limited in what I can do because I got that building right on the corner. So we got a directional going this way and this way to cross. There's a pole here. So again, trying to neck down as you come after they come past the store. It'll get you on Railroad again, trying to neck people down as they enter some of these features. And then the next right here. There's a lot going on here with Annie and Mary. We're going to replace that with the concrete. Right now, it's just the thermoplastic, so we will replace that. We're kind of leaving the geometry of everything pretty much the same. This will be mountable. We're fixing that feature, but we're not doing a whole lot with the intersection there. But what we are going to do on the other side of the speed bump, there's the Annie and Mary trail. We're just going to come in at a 90-degree on this. Right now, it just kind of splits so people can kind of fly around that corner. We're just going to get them to stop and make that turn. There'll be a bulb out here. This is supposed to remain asphalt, but at least that'll get people to kind of come into the intersection at a 90-degree, similar to what we're doing here. This is down by your property. You're coming out. This goes up to the Del Arte and the Logger. Same deal, trying to pull this out right now. There's a lot of asphalt in here, so we're gonna put in a kind of a feature in here, so it's a shorter distance across. The crosswalk right now is here, has horrible sight distance. No one uses it because it's super unsafe. So even every time we're walking out there, I don't know how many comments I got, or is that crosswalk going away? So that's definitely going away. This has better sight distance. You can see what's happening here and what's happening on Hatchery. And again, this will narrow that distance down so people can cross. And then that'll be like a little bulb out feature in here. And this will be mountable. This is already out there, but it's painted. So that'll just be mountable on that so people can still cross through there. And this little striping, that's just like you'll see hatch paint. That's just paint on the bike lane. So the bike lane actually picks up right here at the Annie and Mary Trail, and you have the bike lane going out to the river. So we have enough width to deal with the bike lane. Of the rest of town and town proper, we don't. But going east-west, we got the trail. So instead of anything over with Railroad, I'm not so worried about that because I have a trail just on the other side of the museum green. So Greenwood is the one that I'm really concerned about conflicts with cars. Everywhere else works a little better. And then I do have a challenge with this pole. There's really nowhere to go, so that's just going to be a conflict with that pole. It's like right on the corner. Again, it's really hard dealing with PG and getting poles relocated. Oh, here we go back up. Okay, and then just another like on Hatchery. So now you can see I have a bike lane on Hatchery. This asphalt sidewalks can get replaced with actual concrete sidewalk, curb gutter sidewalk, with a bike lane. And I believe
What about the crosswalk on Hatchery? Because
further down.
right there where it goes basically split.
Oh yeah, no, that's going away. That's this one right here. No,
Gonna
we're
move
taking
it.
that out.
Because that's
That's the worst. Oh no, trust me. I mean, we should probably just even remove it. But yeah. So instead of going here, it's getting relocated to the other side of basically the corner. So it'll. I mean, right now it crosses here by Ray's,
yeah.
and so this is where Kent's building is.
Okay.
So that has a lot better sight distance.
What's that a lot of?
I know. Everybody walks through town to walk down to the river. Just gets a lot of traffic going down. So we do want to narrow that. It's still pretty wide to cross there, so that will narrow it up a bit.
Yeah.
And we're actually bringing this in a little bit. Well, the city owns this corner, so we're going to actually pull that in a little bit to allow for the bike lane.
Mike, while you're at that point, what about that culvert? Is that sinking?
The culvert's fine with sinking, so I've actually walked in the culvert. Actually, part of that when we get that part funded, it's the drop inlet and the line that feeds into the main culvert that's failed. So that's what's failed. I've walked underneath that culvert. The culvert's actually in pretty good shape, but the sidewalk sinking because there's like in here there's a drop inlet and it kind of runs along the sidewalk, and that's where it's all failed. So we want to replace that too. So that's that. This construction is not funded. I don't have funding to go from railroad down to Hatchery. So that I'm still trying to seek money. So when we finish up the design, I'll have a better sense of the actual cost, capital cost for that, and we'll try and seek money. But it's still some years to get it. I mean, I started chasing this down in 2016, and it's 2023. We're going to construction in 2024. That just it takes time.
Now, when you go down Hatchery, are you trying to also?
Yes, in fact,
That seems like the center, what you call them, flags or whatever.
yeah.
It seems like that did slow people down.
It
Yeah.
does for a while. What we find with those types of pop-up features is they work for a while and then people get used to them. And then it's kind of like the radar signs. Like for a while, you're like, oh, geez, I was going too fast. And pretty soon you see people just disregard. So you just kind of got to keep changing things out and keeping people's attention on those features. But I agree. I think they do help because it's one of those visual narrowing. It's not a physical narrowing of the space. It just makes you feel a little bit like you're confined.
Where?
Yeah, so we'll have the painted bike lanes, and then when we get by the creek, we will actually have one more mountable crosswalk in here, speed table crosswalk. So that's like the culvert is basically on the other side, right in here. So it's right about where the culvert is. And then when we come around the corner, we're actually going to have some raised landscaping, kind of sheltered, kind of pull out the bike lane, so there'll be some separation that you'll have a little bit around that corner. And then here, again, this is like a crosswalk that's way behind. You can't see anyone, so we're trying to, this is Taylor Way, trying to pull that out with an angled crosswalk so people can kind of, when they cross, they can see and the cars can get a little further up. Because right now, like I said, that crosswalk's way back.
When you're trying to leave for Taylor Way now, you have to pull, into the
Oh yeah, you got to pull way up here. because of that sight distance is really bad. So right now it's further back. See here, the stop bar right here, that's the existing. Look how far back that is.
So you're going forward.
Yeah, we're pulling it forward and we're doing this because right now, I mean, this is just all, there's no head access. So we're putting this island in here that you can cross. This will be raised and then you can get across here and that's raised. We're pulling that out a little bit too. So this will help. And again, we're looking at all turning movements, trying to go this way, going that way, coming in here. So again, we ran a lot of scenarios. I can walk you through all those.
And there'll be bike lanes on both sides.
Yes, bike lanes on both sides. This is kind of this hatch, little that, you know, how they do when you get into an intersection, they'll hatch the bike lane. And then this is protected again for, you have we're doing the bike lane, then we'll do concrete, and then this will be like a vegetated valley gutter, vegetated strip.
Yeah, because that's now like one of our biggest new user groups are the bike riders. You know, everyone's riding, parking on Taylor, and then they're riding to the hatchery. So we're getting, you know, hundreds and hundreds of bike riders, you know, out there taking that route. So we've really got to accommodate that.
Yeah, and then we just, you know, our limits just end right here at the bridge. So the bike lane kind of ends. And this is just our sidewalk. So this is really tough. This has, you know, we talked about you put a crosswalk. The camber on the bridge, there's a lot of camber on the bridge, so you can't really see. Like I just felt uncomfortable doing some kind of crosswalk because if you're coming from Hatchery, you won't see anyone. So I mean, the county's aware of this issue and how to make hatchery safe going all the way out to the hatchery. We've talked and walked this with Tom Matson several times, so I know it's on their radar. I think Blue Lake Boulevard's a bigger priority for us. We'd like to see some more safety on Blue Lake Boulevard. Working with Tom, but that's why there's no crosswalk because everyone's up here. They cross the bridge, go to both sides of the bridge, but I don't want to encourage, at least from a city standpoint, having crosswalk and liability. We're not encouraging any of that. Once it goes to county, maybe you can cross on the bridge or you have better sight distance, but down here it's not. It's just too much camber on the bridge itself. So, I mean, in essence, that's kind of where we've been at. We've been working on this for over a year and a half. Like I said, we've done some walkthroughs with the community, worked with Pam, and talk to Mandy. We are working hard for outreach on people that live on Greenwood. So I got to sit down, make sure we're talking to people at Greenwood and what's going on in front of their house and all that. So that's key. So I just sat down with Mandy last week with this, and we already spoke with the school. So that's kind of where we're at right now with outreach. And obviously we've been working with the fire department through this whole process.
On your current revenue to do the project with this, just going to be Greenwood?
Yeah. But that was included design for the whole thing, going through the permitting process. Bid docs, construction, I mean, that's everything to cover that.
Feel that there seems like there's quite a few pedestrians on. Well, I guess you're just gonna work on green, so.
Yeah, no, I know. And so, you know, here's my general thinking is like railroad, we have the Annie Mary, you know, we got that improvement. So there's safe, you know, you have an option to walk on the trail. It's not that far off of railroad. Greenwood, we're working on how to make that safe, but at least there is a painted bike lane on that. And you have that sidewalk. So the greatest amount of conflicts between driveways and just how tight that is really Greenwood. And that's where you have the most use of kids going to the school. So that, you know, to us from a safety standpoint, it's a priority is how do we address the conflicts on Greenwood.
Like the idea of a pull through because boy, when time school comes, I mean, it's like crowded there.
Yeah.
You come in, a truck comes in, you know, or
So
just a car.
I mean, we've been speaking with the school for years. This is not a new concept with the school either. This goes back 5+ years.
You want to get them off at night. I mean,
Yeah, and I think, during COVID, there were a lot of things at the school that happened about drop-offs and pickups and, contact. And so that kind of changed a lot of things around. In the past, you were able to kind of like swing down and swing around and go out. And so there was a little bit more of a circulation pattern. And those are things I think as we make improvements, those are things that can be incorporated again. I think it's just been logistically, there's just been a lot of things to try and figure out, through all of this. But
I mean, again, we've been working at the school for years. That's like even, I don't know how many years ago when they switched to parking lots, because it used to be the drop off parking lot was the one right at the
That's
corner,
true.
yeah.
which was bad. So like with the teachers, it's limited the amount of trips. So that's when we talked about switching the parking lots to have the teacher parking lot. So working with what we got, we're
Yeah, there's a lot of limitations on the route is the problem. There's a lot of different usage and there's a lot of need. So it's really, it's not everything you would want, but it's it's so much better than yeah. Yeah. With the having these wider sidewalks so that we can accommodate ADA accessibility, and then just keeping the kids off the street and keeping them on the sidewalk. I mean, that's one of the biggest things is we watch kids, going to school, and they're popping off the street, off the sidewalk into the street, going around a pole, and they're just, they're kids. They're not really thinking. And then you've got trucks and cars, and everyone's so distracted these days. And just that big, wide open, straight strip, just, I mean, you can easily be doing 35 there and not even notice it, and it's too much. So having these physical, features to neck that down is, it's really our only option at this point, because we're not seeing where people are going to necessarily do the right thing. So we're going to have to force them to. There's some means. So
yeah. I mean, we
fortunately,
early on, the concept, could we have a separate bike lane and like something vegetated or curb to separate that from the traffic flow, but then that would eliminate parking, on-street parking. And for the folks on the west side, they have no alley. That's their only way. And then with all the driveways and conflicts, it just wasn't feasible. So
and it's not going to hurt anyone just to slow down a little bit. It might add 30 seconds onto your route, but it's really not going to impede anyone from getting to where they need to go. And, the trucks are fine. We see a lot of trucks every day that are doing the right thing, and they're driving slow through it, and they're still getting, from A to Z, and they're just fine. So it can happen, and, we can all coexist. So it's exciting. I think it's a big project for Blue Lake, and a lot of work has been put in. There'll be, there's always going to be, oh, you should have done it this way, or I don't like this, I don't, but at the end of the day, with all the restrictions that we have and the budget that we have, there's a lot of good features, I think, that are going into this, and a lot of thought that's been put into this, like Mike said, for years, trying to get all this figured out. So. But we're also happy to have more input, from the community as well, the user groups. So.
So are we at public comment?
So that being said, yeah, let's open up public comment. I will need you to stand up to the podium and state your name since this is recorded. Okay. All right.
Ask Mike if you can pull your stuff. Oh yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately, those that are going to go 35 now are going to go 35 then. It's not going to slow them down. I mean, they're going to disrespect the laws. They can still safely do that at 35, probably could do it at 40. I really wish that long-term solutions had been looked at more than what I consider just kind of a push people around attitude. We know that as mentioned before, looking at the school, the long-term solution is that pull-off. And I think that should be definitely incorporated as part of this plan, where the people are not unloading on the street. To narrow the street down, when people are trying to get their kids out in a rush, especially in the rain or something like that, anything narrower than that precludes people from safely opening their car doors as a parent to get out and get their kids into school. It needs to be wider. I understand the sidewalk needs to be wider, especially right in the area of the school. But again, a project in conjunction with the school, and I would hope they would be safety minded enough to work with the city on that. Again, long-term solution rather than bulb outs, which if you look at how many parking places you're losing along these particular areas with the I think there's one additional crossing right now. There's just one right now. Is that correct?
There's two.
There's two right now. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, anything that
Should be
constricts
no more.
anything that constricts the parking uh, is going to be a problem in that area. Any of you go by there to watch the school, this is our main concern is the kids getting out of there safely, out of the cars and things, and getting parents out in and out of there. I don't really think this addresses the long-term projects that need to be addressed. Undergrounding the PG&E, although it's arduous, PG&E is currently being forced to underground a lot of their things. They just raised our rates significantly so they could underground their lines. And I think with the right political pressure to get that done, it's going to take a while. But I think a longer term project that would accomplish that would eliminate some of the problems you have here. To me, it's a lot of it's enforcement. We don't have enforcement. If you're not going to enforce it, it's you make a rule, but you don't enforce. What good is it? And like I say, I can guarantee you a kid with a car wants to go fast, he's going to go no matter what ball outs and bumps and things you put in there. In fact, they may even enjoy slaloming around things and going around things like that. I've seen it. I was a kid once. I know how it works. So those are my concerns on the project. I think it'll be great to hear. My other concern was as far as outreach goes. I'm kind of savvy. People tell me when there's something happening important in town because they know I'm interested. And I heard about the Dan Berman walkabout 10 minutes to 15 minutes before it happened. There was no real outreach letting everybody know it was happening. I went to it, enjoyed what he had to say, listened to what he had to say. Some of it made sense, some of it did not make sense. So that's a little bit of my input on the thing. I would hope that not only are we just giving a chance to express ourselves at a meeting, but some kind of action may be taken regarding that. Public has a perception that we come and say things over and over again. We get ignored and just, well, you had your say and that's all I'm going to do. So thank you for the opportunity to have my say today.
Thank you, Kent.
Can I comment at least on the drive-through? So our funding doesn't allow us to reroute through the school. That's school. So they're just how the funding works out. We are working with the school to get some minor encroachments on the driveway, the sidewalks, but in terms of a driveway through the school, our funding won't allow that. So that they have applied for that. They are trying. It's been, how many years has Deanna said that?
I think 10 or so.
Yeah, and she has her current grant has been in. She's waiting to hear, but they are seeking funds to do it. So they have applied.
All right. Next comment.
Hi, I'm Kat Napier, and I apologize, I missed the first part of your presentation, but I live right there where Greenwood becomes Railroad, right on that curve. So City Hall, I'm right across from it.
So
And
sure.
yes,
Here, I forget.
and without going into too much detail,
Yeah.
what was your, I guess, finding for this
Well,
particular
so
spot?
we're looking at stripper and closing this off. So these are some planters to you see how that works, because one of the main concerns is the conflict of someone coming this way and not being able to see traffic coming this way. So to close that off to discourage, because sometimes people cut across to go down to make that turn. So they can go first, or they can go out one of the other streets to cut over. So it could be somewhat of an inconvenience, but at least from a safety standpoint, just from that, there's no sight distance to see vehicles coming this way. We actually talked to Dan about a stop sign here. He discouraged that. So we were looking at doing some things to kind of neck that down, do this brick feature, have some bulb outs on either end of this that kind of slow down as you enter that.
And this discouraging of it, I did participate in that walk. I also found out about it just a few minutes before it happened. And I didn't feel that he was discouraging that idea at all. I do appreciate that there's a response to what could happen with a car coming off of East Street, and especially if they're trying to go over to Broderick. And that could be an effective measure. It definitely would have some impact on how we would drive there, but
Yeah.
this is all part of being part of community. I will say though, and I think I could ask Mandy, what do you think I'm going to say? Stop sign. So I keep hearing that there are budget restrictions, and I think it was very clear that the gentleman who did that tour with his expertise was very concerned about this corner. His words were slingshot through this corner, and that is exactly what happens. This happens in the middle of the night, happens with trucks, Happens in the day, the weekends, the weekdays. It's a 24/7 issue. And so the reason I'm adamant about that is there is the traffic issue, there's also the pedestrian issue. The pedestrian issue is partly with that crosswalk. We host so many events here. And with pedestrians that are coming that aren't familiar with the town, with drivers coming in that are looking for parking and aren't familiar with the town, I watch them over and over again coming through that corner. They're coming downhill on Greenwood. They're getting ready to slingshot through that corner. And surprise, there's a family with strollers, kids in tows, pets. And I think it's a very real issue. I don't see why there almost seems to be an opposition to a stop sign at a corner that seems so desperately in need of one. And a stop sign is such a small expense. I think that this is something that I'm begging the Safety Commission, each of you, trying to look you in the eye, Chris, ma'am, sir, each of you, that a stop sign could be an extremely effective solution that we can try for a while. If we have the crossover bumps, that's an amazing amount of noise. And we can see from the scar marks on those the bump outs, the big berms that we have by the park, how many people have impacted them. I just find they make a lot of noise. And when we have a residence here, we're trying to sleep or have our lives, also trying to have our windows open to be able to cool, our house in the summertime. It's impossible when we have trucks and cars racing through that corner, 30, 35 miles an hour. The amount of dust that we get on our home and in our home, not really acceptable. A stop sign, I feel, could be a measure that at least as a city and as planning commissioners, can we just try it for a while? Can we just see how that might lessen the impact? Instead of having to pour concrete, put trees, close off streets, move barriers, have signs flashing, just a stop sign. People tend to stop. At least they pause, they roll through. And I know I'm a little emotional about this. I've asked for the stop sign for some time. And a good friend of mine, a good friend of many people in town, her name was Gerbil. She was about 11 years old when she was hit and killed by a car on Greenwood right around that corner. So I think my little cat, who was friends with many people here, might have had a chance had people not been flying through that corner. Next time it could be a child, an adult, bicyclist, someone who's coming here for one of the events in town. A stop sign, I feel, should be one of the number one considerations for Greenwood and Redwood. And if it is not, I would like to see some extensive research on why that idea could not be implemented. Thank you very much.
Where are you thinking the stop sign would be?
Greenwood and Railroad in that corner?
But coming from railroad?
Both directions. There would be a stop there. If you're coming from Railroad, right there. If I may, this mask is just killing me here. You have Railroad, the stop sign. You have Greenwood, stop sign. You already have a stop sign here. It's a three-way stop. Everybody gets to see everybody now before they proceed. Yeah.
But
Essentially.
so I did work with, one of the things we did run was a stop sign. We discussed that extensively. And he thought actually, to go away from the stops. I could work with Dan and come up with again, I didn't document as we were working through all these designs through that. We are narrowing, this is coming out a little bit, so we're narrowing that. We're kind of narrowing it down. We're on either end, we're narrowing that down. We thought against the stop sign or some tree. We looked at a little mini roundabout. We looked at a lot of different things, but just because of the geometry of what's going on here, this is what we finally ended up with. But there's a lot of time discussed actually this intersection and then Greenwood, the entry to town. Were probably two challenging intersections for us. And if the commission wants, I could try and get some documentation from Dan or thoughts on why he recommended that we go with this.
I was on the walkabout too, and I don't remember his reasoning behind that. I would be interested to.
Yeah, well, it was more when we actually had designs and we factored in actually a stop sign on that, and he went through it. And he has another engineer that he collaborates with that does a lot of work throughout the country, and this is one of the recommendations that they had come up
One of the
with.
things he talked about is having not creating necessarily such hard breaks, but creating slower flow. So you can still come through. You're not having to have, all the trucks braking right there. You're not having to have the hard stops, but you're creating a scenario where you just literally have to slow down, but you can keep the flow of traffic going. And that I know that was one of his concerns about the number of different, the number of vehicles coming into that intersection. If you have all of these vehicles stop making these really hard stops, it starts to create one is people are just going to run it. They already run half the stop signs in Blue Lake, and then you're not slowing them down at all. So and then you're going to have the noise from it. You're going to have, and it's a truck route, so you have a lot of, that's a big impact for a truck, to hit those brakes and slow down, especially, there's times where we do have a lot of trucks coming through, at one right after another. So his concept was more of, like I said, just creating a slower flow pattern, but not making the hard breaks.
That's with
And
flashing.
I appreciate that. I am going to follow up with, again, there's a bias already against a stop sign. I am asking specifically of you, the Safety Commission, to think for yourselves, is a stop sign an effective and simple solution? Do we believe that people just ignore them anyway? People stop, they slow down, or they roll through. That honestly would be enough. And I wouldn't have a problem if people slowed down and then rolled through that stop sign. The net effect would be people would be crossing through and looking safely. And I do think that there could be some merit on that inside curve where they're putting out some berms to slow it down. I know I have at times intentionally parked a vehicle close to that area. I see them slow down, but it's only so that they can, that's only if there's oncoming traffic. Otherwise, they just go into the other lane. This is what I've observed consistently. I'm not picking on truck drivers. And I think that one stop sign in the course of a day is not going to put a company into the red if they have to adjust their brakes one extra time.
If one solution doesn't cause another problem, which is going back to trucks or loud cars, they stop and they take off. They make a
Mhm.
lot more noise,
And I agree with that. I'm gonna relinquish this podium here in just a moment, but I will say that when we talk about, I agree. One of my philosophies in construction is for every problem has a solution. Every solution has a problem. We try to trade off until we find those problems that we can live with and the solutions that we can actually support. And so that's one thing where I'm coming across with the stop sign. It is something we can afford. It is something that we can do. Even if they don't fully stop, we have come way, way, way ahead of where we are right now. And when I look at how these trucks are coming through on there, they're already blasting through. I've watched some of these trucks where I'm seeing daylight under two of those wheels in the back as they're coming through. Not all of them, and not all the time, but enough that I left a really great football game to come in here and say, my cat died because of this. Someone else might die because of this. And I truly, in my heart of hearts, believe that an effective, affordable solution that we should at least implement and try is a stop sign. Thank you all so
Thank you.
much.
I would like the commission to hear reasoning on the stop sign.
Yeah, I
We'll
agree.
revisit that and then we'll talk about that later.
I'll sneak in and speed stuff up.
All right.
I would like to thank our prior speaker. The stop sign has
So
been,
Julie,
Julie Christie again. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
people on the microphone can't hear you.
And I would like to commend our prior speaker. Actually, that stop sign at this intersection has been prior on our safety commission and council recommendations and public comment preceding the truck route. Just just throwing that out there. And it's been a concern of our public for a very long time. And I have to be corrected by staff, but I believe the studies and all the work we'd have to do into doing a stop sign actually pretty intensive and costly, I guess was the reasoning we were given in the past. I'm going to jump into my public comment. I did write notes as I was listening to our presentation. Thank you, Mike, for your time with that. And I would like to agree with our manager. COVID did leave a gap of awareness for the public and a time for action, like many other current items in need of action due to funds and grants. With 3 to 4 years of internal planning and 1.6 million in funds, I believe that's the figure that I heard quoted. I have been concerned since the evolution of this plan about public updates and input, especially concerning truckers regarding the DOT regulations for both their ability to keep our community safe and themselves, meaning narrowing our roads and having bulb outs. Okay, it makes it very hard for the truckers. I think a stop sign's much smarter. These plans tonight are in depth and are sounding facilitated without much room for negotiation. I'm concerned that more business owners, since this is a facilitated historical truck route, and being a parent at drop off for the last 13 years, a local farmer, we're an owner of a semi business with one truck that slowly goes to Corbell. Hopefully, Zach, no, I'm checking. He's my trucker friend here. He's concerned too because he drives these roads and wants to make sure they're safe for him to drive. And I've been wanting to stay involved. And again, this is why this is some public comment. I've been on city council since this evolved, you guys, asking for updates because I feel concerned that, as many have spoke tonight, there's lots of little details that we should be breaking out in smaller sessions or town hall. I'm not saying what the solution is, but I know this is just a discussion. And I'm very excited to see it before us all tonight, even though we are only viewing a small portion of the truck route that was originally budgeted. Knowing sections that would originally be funded have already been facilitated, that's great. Hopefully, we won't be spending funds on that later if we progress to them. My concerns would be around the school with pickup and drop off, since that's what we're talking about. I think adding the bulb outs there along the stairs is going to add to more congestion. Maybe I'm the only parent there with a full size truck, but I've promoted my child now is 10 to walk and ride a bike. But as winter hits and it's raining and the bus, I have to bring him to school. And the bus comes an hour before I would even need to drive him to school. So I'm a nice mom and let him stay home. So my concerns and suggestions would be tonight is that we have that second crosswalk after the school there that's not lighted and doesn't have the signal that people can push when they're going across. I think that would be really cool that if at least we could get another light signal at that second crosswalk. I like the race thing too. That's very visual. And just having presence of even a fire department truck or CHP out there or any of our sheriff's department and our volunteers from the city earlier, we had some talk about that with people coming in for the school for pickup and drop off. I think that's our main concerns. And thank you for my time. I know I went over a few minutes.
Scott Farley, 540 I Street or 4th Street, I guess, is our actual address. But we're on the block, and which corner you use. But at any rate, lived in Blue Lake here since 1975. My father drove truck for me. I am in a partnership that we own Kerna Construction, and we probably have 20, 25 trucks right now. And 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, hey, we were kind of in some of the first meetings about what was talked about and what might happen down through town here, and that was all pretty cool. Kent Sawatsky came by today and said, "Hey, we're gonna have a meeting about this." It's like, "Oh, okay, haven't heard about nothing about it in a long, long time." And maybe that is a communication from our end that's gotten dropped when it's been sent to us or what, but I think we're a pretty big player in what's going to go in on your street out there. So it's kind of interesting. You know, if you move back up on your drawings till you can get up by the school, up by Blue Lake Boulevard, we come through there. I'm going to tell you right now, probably a half a dozen to 10 times a year right now, and turn down by the school, go out to our stuff mainly. Sometimes when we go out there with a 9-axle, we could be 15 feet wide and 200 some thousand pounds, and pretty much that intersection right there, you need every inch of it to get around the corner and get headed down the street.
And if there's cars parked on both sides, you pretty much drive down the middle. And we don't do that with, hey, we're trying to shove all the cars that are coming at us the other direction off the side of the road, but we really have no choice. And if the 9-axle did go out there, it would be very slow. We'd make a lot more trips out there with a truck that's 65 feet long, and probably most of the time those loads are 12 foot wide or less. We haul probably 90% of Green Diamond's equipment, and they again have numerous pieces that are 12 foot wide. Might have to go on the 9-axle. They have stuff that's 14 feet wide. Out at the 5,000 road, that was all logged pretty heavy in the 80s, and the cycle on that getting logged again is coming pretty rapidly, I would guess. I can't speak for Green Diamond, but I would think in the next 5, 10, for sure 20 years, there's going to be a lot of traffic headed out that way. Yes. In which our asphalt plant's out at Hatchery Road too on the left before you get down to Green Diamond stuff. But it's a pretty big concern when you round that corner right there to think you're going to have to try to get down through there. Again, like I'm saying, we could be 15 feet wide, and you were talking about your center line to curb is 11.6, so we don't have much of a place to go other than in the other lane.
Not to interrupt, Scott, but I just have a question. How without the cement gutter, how wide is the bulb out?
Bulb out is 8. So look at right now, I got a 40-foot right of way.
Okay.
Back of curb to back of curb. That's all we got on Greenwood. So, parking lanes usually it's I think they already narrowed the fog line on. They already narrowed that to 11.5 on what they painted, because originally it was 12. So that's kind of, so just for point of reference right now, what you're seeing on that.
So my question though is like from where the curb is now to the edge of the bulb out, not including the gutter, how much farther would it go out?
I think that's 7 or 8.
Okay.
But you were thinking that was 11.6 from center line to curb, right?
Yeah.
So really,
You got 22 feet.
that's what I'm saying is
it's your trucks are going to come down the middle of the road.
it's a car park there, really.
Yeah, and a car is parked right beside it.
But
There's a stop sign at the corner going on to Kulak Boulevard. Did it to the bulb out.
You know this a lot more than I do.
From here? Which one are you looking at?
From the corner where the stop sign is going on to Blue Lake Boulevard. Yeah, there. How far to that first pull down?
So
that
we're
one.
maybe moving that one. That's probably my scale up. See, brought my scale.
Another question for you, Scott.
That wants to accommodate moving the fire hydrant.
The 5,000.
Because right now it's right.
How often do they use the summer crossing for moving equipment?
So
they haven't had a summer crossing out there in years.
Over 20 probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if if you thought about those bulb outs being just a car park there, it's about the same space. So
that's
it's basically
20.
just taking up parking space.
That's 20, but that's where one of the things we're looking at moving that and pulling that back. And the reason for this is just to get it on the hydrant.
It's all doable, but it's congesting it a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of what you guys do though, you're not hauling those big low boys like in the times where school's, in session and parents are, you time that because otherwise the whole place is a disaster. I see you guys hauling the bigger stuff like during the day when, there's not a bunch of people at the school and stuff. And there's a lot of time when on Greenwood, you look out there and you don't see a car. You might not see a car for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You know, the road's just wide open. So
But my point of it is that's a really tight intersection, and trying to restrict that up towards Blue Lake Boulevard is, I'm not sure in your best interest. Yeah, it could be a car parked there instead of your bulb out there, but um,
Do you feel better about shifting the
Ye-
bulb outs back down the road?
I,
Is it the intersection that?
farther back down would be better
So
than
like a six,
up,
you still
up
go
at
on
the
a
beginning.
six, you still got a wide car. I mean, the car's still gonna stick further out than the bulb out.
So most cars are 6.5 or 7 feet wide, and if you're 8.5 feet wide out to the face of your curb, but your bulb out, so I'd question you on that a little bit. But anyway, that's all cool. But you know, when we come down through there with the trucks, we try to be courteous. I try to be courteous if I'm driving one of them. The guys occasionally you'll get one of them that'll be um, off in a different world and probably doesn't be as courteous as he needs to be. And I'm sorry to everybody about that. But if you come down through there with something big, hey, um, the cars have to get off. Hopefully, everybody can understand. We all got to share the road, and we're going to come through here, you know, 10 or 20 times all year with something that's oversized, and that's potential to go up on account, I think. So it just needs to be seriously considered. But trying to crowd things up by that intersection,
So the bulb out are 6 feet.
or not good.
Shot.
So then if you drop back down across from City Hall, if you could.
Let me pull the other one.
And I think the stuff that's from Blue Lake Boulevard, other than right at the intersection down to here to City Hall, most of that's all pretty good. If we got the big trailer and we're dragging the right load through there, hey, if your speed humps are 3 inches, we're probably going to drag on them. That's just where it is. But it'll go over them fine. But I'm not sure how long they'll look very nice. So that's something to be considered. But on the inside corner there of Greenwood to Railroad,
Yeah, this guy.
that is extremely tight now. I know the one lady, hey, get everybody to slow down, and I get it. But if you crawl through there with the truck, bobtail and 10-wheeler truck going through there, hey, you should be able to drive through there pretty much about like a car. Not a whole lot different. A log truck coming through there, a semi, not a short logger might track a little bit differently than the truck does, but a semi long logger pretty much runs in the same tracks as the truck did, maybe slightly offset, not bad. But if you get a truck with a chip van, or you get 40-foot bottom dumps, all that kind of stuff, that corner is extremely tight right now. And I don't care how slow you go. You're probably going to go around that corner, and you're probably going to swing out into the other lane to keep from dragging over the curb.
Yeah, and that's
So-
2
so-
feet, just so you know.
Huh?
This is this is pretty small. That's like 2 foot.
Right. But if you're protruding any of that stuff out from where the curb is now, it's going to get ran over.
Yeah.
Or you're shoving the people out, and you're shoving the trucks out into the other lane.
Yeah.
You've given them nowhere else to go. I'm not sure of the layout of where your house is in relation to the corner, but with a little bit of leg, could you go and reduce the radius on the point of the corner, or the house is right out to the corner? So
Yeah.
and
it's already
and that's fine.
reduced.
I'm throwing it out there, but
I was already reduced somewhat.
the
Previous owner.
the stop sign thing, hey, maybe that works. I'm not the engineer, but I'm glad she brought it up and got an opportunity to put her information in here. I think that's pretty strong, but that is a really, really tight intersection. And if you, with a standard truck, now, if you come through there with the oversized trucks, I guarantee you're taking the whole thing. So be happy to load stuff up. You guys want to go paint this stuff out on the ground? I can bring you a load to demonstrate it. Not a problem.
Yeah, that's normally what when we see the trucks coming through, they usually, I mean, if they're coming slow enough, they do swing in the other lane, and it's usually fine. You can see them coming. There's room on this side for any car to kind of pull over a bit and accommodate it. It's just when they're coming through so fast.
I mean, we try out at the hot plant hey guys, let's go back through town at 15 miles an hour. It's not that bad. I told them 15 miles an hour before you had the signs up, and you try to do that, and some people will do it, and some people just they're never gonna get it, and the
I
only
mean,
way
that's our problem, though. You've got good drivers, and we're an industry town. Those are our roots. We've always had trucks in town, and we get it. But you get what I've seen has changed is we get a lot of short haulers too. Who are just making as many rounds as possible, especially when we got projects really close by. If they're like running to your batch plant and they're like, I want to make 30 rounds or whatever, they're ripping through town. It's not as much like back in the day when that logging truck driver was also your little league coach, and they all knew each other, and it was, things are a little slower. And so we're really seeing that we're having to install those physical barriers to limit that capacity because it's a different day right now. And it's not just the trucks, you can see cars. I mean, I watch moms going to school, texting on their phone, not even looking up, driving, all the way up Greenwood, and so what do you do?
Yep. So this coming summer, we got 3 jobs that are pretty big that some of should have happened last year. It didn't because the jobs didn't get going. But we've got probably a good portion of the summer. There's a chance there's 200 trucks a day just coming out of our place one way. So I don't know. The other potential one I can see is the issue is down at Taylor Way. You're not really changing. You're not going to change the center island up at the Lindstrandsel store, right?
No.
So that'll stay the way it is.
Yeah, it'll be mountable. Yeah. Because you see that sometimes some of that stuff gets tracked over anyway. It might be on this.
It would be handy there, and it's probably hard on your parking, but if across the street over there had 75 feet of red curb would be
red curb
really over.
Where do you want red curb? Here's trail cross river.
Barbara Russell's place.
Oh, here. There you go. Yeah, no, we can red curb that. Because
it's usually a bad.
You're definitely
you
tied
swing out,
there.
right? When you're coming to swing out. Yeah, we noticed that. In fact, I think I saw some black out, tire scuff marks on the curb.
So if you could drop down to the Taylor Way intersection, that would be my last thought.
And like I said, I just talked to Mandy last week, but it was trying to get a hold of you and Gary Johnson too. I mean, we got to sit down and go through this.
Yeah, we're gonna have a meeting with all the industry people too, so we're just kind of trying to get everyone in groups.
We talked to Green Diamond during the LRSP, the local road safety. It was in general. We talked mostly. It was just concerns on Boulevard.
So what do you got going there on the? Like if you were coming for town, is that
like right now the crosswalk's like in here?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have this dedicated lane. So what we're doing is we're putting a feature in here. This will be
like a ped refuge.
A ped refuge that you can cross, so you get better sight distance. You can cross over because a lot of people come through here to go to the river.
So is that going to be mountable?
This? Yeah, this could be mountable.
There's room.
You would have to. No, it would need to be mounted front.
I don't see.
And some talk too of like taking this whole thing out.
It'll be
like
the
you
north,
take out that
north
dedicated lane and that would help pull this out. I mean, that was another thing that we talked about.
Yeah. Well, I don't see how you have 6-inch curbs there and you get down there with a big trailer. We don't go down. in the past went down to
Work out
Pepe's and
between
do
there.
stuff. Yeah, but currently we haven't done anything down there in a long time. But he still does some stuff down there that people take big stuff down there, and I don't see how you're elevating that and getting in and out of there.
The egress is probably the biggest problem is leaving.
I would say more
Well,
coming
you
in.
have this turn, you have this movement. I think you're worried about
That one.
Yeah.
making this one.
Assuming you're heading out of town. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see why he'd be taking something big.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Going
That
towards
there
the
could
hatchery.
potentially be something wrong with the Green Diamond or whatever. Any interaction.
So
Yeah.
that looks like a pretty
Pretty
tough intersection to be raising this stuff up. And again, happy to load up and go demo for you if we need to. Whatever we can facilitate that. But
Okay.
it's just a little bit concerning on those 3 locations for sure, and the 4th one with the paint on the curb doesn't seem like too big of a deal.
No.
So, anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
So
Bye.
I just wanted to give a plug for the good old fashioned stop sign. I don't know,
State your name, please.
Elise Scafani.
Thank you. Just for the mic. So for
Um,
recording.
It seems like, stop signs just aren't in vogue, I guess, is part of the deal. But it's, to restate what some folks have already stated, it seems like it's a simple, possibly inexpensive and enforceable um, something that's absolutely going to slow people down. I believe it's possible that we could all benefit from a few more stop signs. And I suppose if we put them in and there was something about it that really didn't work, that they could be removed, and other more expensive or more involved solutions might be looked at that point. But it seems like, and I don't know, maybe you can educate all of us about a stop sign and what it takes to put one in.
There are warrants you have to go through in the mind, because I was actually looking into this. It's the MUTCD, Municipal Uniform Traffic Code. Anyway, that's as engineered. That's what we have to follow and go through. And because of the primary and secondary, the nature of this intersection, it's just say it wasn't straightforward. It wasn't a slam dunk to put in a stop sign. I mean, I actually spent some time looking at that, but we did look seriously at putting a stop sign still, and what we're considering that. So I'll follow up with the Safety Commission, document at least what Dan's thoughts were on why he preferred this solution.
So when you mention the regulations you're talking about, does any of that mandate a traffic study, or do you just have to, show this, that, or whatever, as to where it can go and how?
Well, you have to demonstrate the need for a stop sign on that too, and what traffic warrants, and so there's things that you have to document, and there is engineering judgment you apply to, but you have to back that up. So anyway, I did look into that, so I've got my file on that. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any more public comment on this item? All right. Oh, well, go ahead.
Hi, John Sawatsky here. I think that we just need to consider that this is going to be our main artery for any development in the near future too. So we'd have to make sure that whatever's going to be going down there and possibly coming out will be able to fit on these trucks that we're bringing back and forth as well. Thank you.
All right. If there's no more public comment on this item, we can move on to item number 7. I&H Street neighborhood discussion regarding the traffic calming features and parking options.
Great. So so kind of along the same thought process, we're looking at safety improvements throughout the community. We finished our local road safety plan just recently, and that was a pretty thorough attempt at getting a handle on what are some of the main areas of concern, and looking at some lower cost options, because a lot of the projects that we see, a lot of the improvements, it's $1 million, it's $2 million. And, for a small town, those are, usually it's a very long process if we are going to get the funding, or it's just really not, in our future. So our local road safety plan was really looking at lower cost solutions that we could implement within our community to make some safety improvements. And that was also a pretty lengthy, involved process where we did a lot of community outreach, a lot of presentations. We worked really closely with the county, law enforcement, the school. We did lots of walks. We worked with neighborhoods, industry users, just to get feedback. But it was mostly the community provided a lot of commentary about what they're seeing in their own neighborhoods. So we're starting to look at investment into some of those improvements and looking at those on kind of a piece by piece basis, neighborhood by neighborhood. All the neighborhoods are different. They all have different needs. I live on Charton. I have, the park next to me. I have a casino down the road from me. My experience with traffic and uses is going to be different than, say someone up on H Street or I Street or Northfield Terrace or so. So we wanted to start breaking some of these areas down and start reaching out to the communities, the neighborhoods specifically. I and H Street are very wide streets. They have, a lot of users. We get a lot of complaints, especially about I Street for speeding. We have a tot lot up there. So we have the preschool on H Street. So we wanted to start, pulling these out and start really diving into what are some improvements that could be made. So we decided the Public Safety Commission has done this on other issues in the community, just doing neighborhood outreach, inviting a specific neighborhood to come in and just tell us what your experiences are. Because like I said, our experiences are all different in the community depending on where we live. So we put some flyers and hangers out, and I'm really happy to see people showed up. In the past, we haven't always had people show up. So we're here tonight to talk with you guys about what you're seeing in your neighborhood and what you think about some solutions. We do have a couple of pop-up roundabouts that we're trying. We've had some mixed reviews. We have people who just absolutely hate the roundabouts. We have people who absolutely love the roundabouts. We have people who are calling and asking if they can have a roundabout in their neighborhood. We're getting a lot of commentary on, I like the roundabout, but it needs to be changed a little bit. Maybe we need to do some red curbing. Maybe it needs to be bigger, smaller, positioned a little differently. So this is an opportunity to kind of hear from you guys and get some feedback, because we are looking at solutions and we recognize that safety in our neighborhoods is really important. And so we've invited you guys here tonight to kind of give us some feedback. And I don't know how the commission wants to facilitate this. Mike is here too. He was, SHN helped to pull together the LRSP and get that through the process. So there was a lot of data collection and work done. And then of course, Mike lives on Hartman, so he has his own issues with traffic that
I
he
used to live on I Streets.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Yeah. So that's what we're here tonight to get some feedback and see if there's some additional things we can do or change or,
Yeah, I mean, just step up the podium. I mean, do we want
I
to do
think Chris
that?
had a
I had a
comment.
question.
Yeah,
Not a
go
question,
ahead.
but a comment. I have to get up in like 3 hours, so
Mhm.
I need to cut it short. Would you please email me the minutes so I can go over them?
Yes.
Do you have it, or you? It's the you should be CC'd in the other.
The blue
Mhm.
that's here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks,
All right,
Chris.
thank you.
Thanks, Chris. I mean, can we just do
Yeah, and you know
town
what? Let me
halls? Like,
preface a little bit on some of the installations that we're looking at, starting with I Street. I Street has a lot of opportunity to make some changes. It's a really pretty street. It's got a lot of real estate. That roadway is really large. Yeah, so there's a lot to work with there. And I think there's a lot of opportunities to look at creative ways. We've looked at parking, like making some little parklets, maybe a couple of areas maybe have some diagonal parking, 4 or 5 or 6 slots, and then maybe there's an opportunity for a bulb out with a pretty tree. The mini roundabouts are an option. But I think there's ways, especially on I Street, where we could do some installations that aesthetically could be really pretty on the street, but also be really effective at slowing down traffic. And granted, we're not going to slow everyone down. People will find a way to speed. I have a speed table in front of my house, and I can't tell you how many cars have hit that flying, but I can tell you there's a whole lot more that slow down to go over it. It's had a huge impact on our neighborhood. So, the features don't work for everyone, but they do work for the majority. So, like,
Before we start beautifying,
Mhm.
I want to, address the safety issues even more.
Mhm.
And I don't know how many people are aware that H Street narrows down to an alley,
Mhm.
and people use it. And they come around from 4th Avenue. It's a blind turn, and they're like,
Yeah.
And you have, as a pedestrian with a dog or children with their bicycles, there's no place to go
Mhm.
when they do that. It's pretty scary. And I'd rather address that. That's a dangerous spot. It really is.
Right at Third Street, then next down, Fourth.
It's coming around that corner into that.
They come from the I, turn right on 4th, and then go down. If they've done it before, they may be aware that they should be cautious, but it's a blind corner.
Mhm.
And
So you're talking
there's
like right in
shrubs.
here?
Yeah.
So here's
Yeah.
H, and here's I Street. This is
So
like
that's
Third.
Fourth.
This is where next down. Like
Go, yeah. Go. And see what a right angle that left turn is?
yeah, that guy.
And it's shrubbery, and there's no
Yeah.
sidewalks. There's no place
No,
for
it's
your
narrow.
pedestrian to
Yeah, I
go.
just live right
Yeah.
around the corner. I know that.
And it's a block long.
Yeah.
And I mean, people park on it too. Can you imagine? They park on it. It's like people. This is dangerous,
Yeah.
And I like no parking, and even a one way would be really good.
Mhm.
Will you please state your name just for the recording too?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm Katie Ashcombe.
Thank you.
And Scott Farley and I, Scott's my husband, and we live on the corner of 4th and I, but it's H and 4th.
He lives on
I know where we live.
his
H
front
and
door's on
4th,
the other
that's
side.
really dangerous.
Okay.
And our little animals, like the lady that lost her cat. Anyway, that's went down that I Street with the animals too. But we would like I Street slowed down just for kids and animals,
Mhm.
But that one little section of H is dangerous. And what to do about it? Nobody seems to address it. I've meant to address it with the city lots of times, and then I just, oh well, But now it's
What do you think would be a solution, Peggy?
well, we know we can't have parking on it first of all, and it needs to be a one way from 3rd to 4th. I'd like to see it a one way going north.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, like you're talking
Yes.
going that
Yeah.
way, one way, like probably from Third.
From 3rd to 4th.
Here it's wide.
Yeah.
It gets
Right.
narrow right in here.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be hard for the people coming out of the driveway?
Well, and I've mentioned that.
This one is like at an angle.
It has 2 driveways that kind of dive down, and I've mentioned that to my husband tonight. And he's like, well, if they make it a one-way going south, that would still be better than a two-way street,
Yeah.
I don't know what you do with people that come around there fast.
Might be able to be a two-way street up to the alley or something.
Yeah. Up to that
Maybe
first
that
intersection.
would allow them to get
Just
in
make it a
both of
one,
those driveways.
yeah, two-way
so,
up to the
it's something
first.
you bring up a good point. We can take a look at that and see what thoughts there are.
But there's nights I'll come home and I can't get up around that direction. I'm already committed. Not that I
Yeah,
can't.
so like no parking is what, I mean, things to think about.
At the beginning there is a spot, pretty big spot where people can park. If they're
That's
afraid to
before
go
the
down to their friend's house that's died down.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, half the driveway gets really narrow.
Yeah.
But they park right on it, and you're like, people, this is. Do you want to come back, find your car all smashed in, and you don't know who even did it? But anyway, glad we're starting a conversation about it anyway.
Yeah, thank you.
I did want to thank the Farleys for being here tonight. I think Scott was going to be here on that topic, but I told him about tried to get Gary Johnson, couldn't get him. So one of my pet peeves is when people of concern weren't reached out to 72 hours in advance for this. The truck drivers should have all been notified. I shouldn't have to go around and try and get them to come to these meetings when it's important for them to be coming. So um, I think that the solution in that area, there's got to be a fix. I don't know if you just post local traffic only on the thing so nobody will drive down that. Make it implied that it's not just about not a fruit through street. That's my backyard right there, and there's a problem. The people down below on both sides do not have sufficient parking when they have guests or they have a party, and they do park along those areas, and that's when they park all up and down the street along it. It's okay to park, but I think no parking signs would definitely be appropriate for that area. And I think that might be some solutions. I think we can all kind of think about it a little bit more and come up with something that'll work with it. It's the one way or whatever it is. Something needs to be fixed there. It is definitely a problem. The rest of the projects you're talking about, in my opinion, I like 60-foot wide streets. I like it because people can park safely. People can bicycle safely. People, anytime you start having bulb outs and you have all kind of diagonal parking and things, uh, those can cause more problems than helping. We don't have a problem with needing more parking there. The only time we get parking impacted is like Annie and Mary Day, or there's some very large function down at Del Arte, and that's something we all live with. It's a public street. I don't see any reason to really make any major changes there. Definitely don't want the mini roundabout in the middle of the street. That's been a disaster from the get-go, and I don't think this area is really all that broken, in my opinion. Uh, I did have a question regarding the qualifications for the stop signs. Is there also a system where you have to qualify something to put in the speed humps also? Is that just stop signs? And has that process been done? From what I remember, I think we have probably twice as many stop signs. I've been here my whole life as we used to have uh, in the area. And I don't know if we've done that warrant process for all of those stop signs because I haven't seen any indication that that's been done, traffic studies or anything's required for those. They just seem to go in all of a sudden. And that's a concern. If there's a process, are we following it? I'm big on process and procedure. Personally, having multiple properties, having lived there for a long time period, I would like to see it kind of left alone. The biggest thing we need is enforcement. Again, as the city manager said, some people are going to go too fast anyway. Those are the problem people. It's not the rest of us who live in the neighborhood, and there just needs to be some kind of enforcement. That's why you'll see a lot of us being very strong to keep the sheriff, possibly getting some other kind of enforcement to deal with traffic issues here. The neighborhood watch, the scoop traffic driving around, all these things all can play an important part, but it all comes down to enforcement. Rules worthless unless they're enforced. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Is it no? Because honestly, if we posted, honestly, 25 is too fast in those neighborhoods, really. I mean, we really need to look at limiting the speed probably to 15 throughout the town. 25 is fast when they're.
Okay,
go ahead.
My name's Ruben Ledesma. I live at the corner of 3rd and I, 541 3rd. And I get to look at the roundabout out my window and listen to the people hit it. Unfortunately, it's only going to slow down the honest people. You know, I get them seeing how fast they can go around that thing, you know, and you can't put any laws into effect that don't have any teeth. I witnessed a break-in right in front of my house, and it took 45 minutes to get a police officer there. Um, we've got more dilemmas, with that road, that highway. And I worked in transportation for 30 years. Um, I watched people do 40 miles an hour on that street.
Mhm.
And I watched the kids that crossed to go over to the tot lot get threatened by cars driving down the street. I know you got a dilemma there, but you need to put a sign up at least. Maybe some honest people will start to slow down and realize it. Um, I've been out there and slowed some of the people down myself because I just get tired of them hauling butt. And it's terrible because it's the same people. And whether you put a sign up, I'm wanting to see a sign. There's no speed limit signs on that street. And it gives everybody just free reign to go as fast as they can to get down to that T and go to the post office. Ever since we put this 15-mile-an-hour sign out here, everybody goes over there on my street. I bought a Nerf ball for my dog because I like to shoot the Nerf balls out there, and I was thinking about starting to shoot them out in the road because these people, they don't want to slow down. And you guys got to do something about it because sooner or later it's going to happen. Sooner or later it's going to happen, and I think you guys are going to be rather kind of upset when we lose one of our kids because we didn't act on something.
Buster, what do you think are some solutions?
Put up a stop sign, number
Stop
one.
signs right there.
You got to. The honest people are going to
Mhm.
start to slow down. Right in front of my house. I'm fine with it. And my neighbor across the street's fine with it. Yeah, I mean, everybody on my street right there, I've been there almost, 35 years. And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. Oh, the stop sign would be, but they're too noisy. You bring any vehicle to a stop and then have to accelerate. You woke me up. Just slow down. Be considerate of your neighbor, your neighborhood. We all live here together. Who's in a rush? I mean, geez, look at the town we live in, you guys. It ain't the town I moved into 35 years ago.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
Actually, it is the locals. It
it's
is
a lot
the
of the
locals.
locals. Yeah, and I've even been out there and tell them to slow down. I drag a goddamn pole across the street sometimes just to slow the pole down. It's pretty ridiculous. It really is. And I just want to. I'd like to see a stop sign on both sides. You talk to Deb or me, and we'll put them up. I bought a pole to give you guys to put up out there.
Well, we could do. I mean, that's an intersection where you could have a four-way stop.
Well, I don't think a four-way stop is.
Well, yeah. I mean, it would
You
make it a
got one
four-way
going the
stop
other
right
way.
there.
Try a couple of signs for a while. But having that turnaround out there is I'm sorry, it's kind of ridiculous, you guys. It doesn't look very becoming to us.
What if
You
that?
know,
So if that was a permanent installation and it was a little bit bigger, because right now what I've seen when I go up there is that it's pretty small, and so I when I see something like that somewhere I'm driving, it gets your attention. You're like, oh, I need to slow down. Like, I'm coming into something. Like it's a reminder, but I don't really have to go too far around it. I don't, where like larger roundabouts, you got to go, you really got to slow down to go around it. Do you think if it was larger and we really had to force people to slow down to go around it, would be
be
helpful?
nice to feel like everybody might respond like that, but that's not the way the world functions. I'm going to see how fast I can go through that. And it's hilarious to watch these people, let alone watch your group of people come out and try to clean up the mess the next
Mhm.
day, or Marvin come out and help out and try to clean. It's our neighborhood, and it's an eyesore, and
Well, it's
it's
funny
get.
because Marvin actually really likes it. Marvin
Well, I
actually
know that Marvin and yeah,
and
yeah,
Rick really like it. So
yeah,
they've
yeah,
actually come to us and said, we love it.
yeah,
That's why I said we're getting a lot of different feedback. So that's what's
yeah.
good here tonight because, Kent says there's no problems. Kent likes 60-foot wide roads and he wants people just to be able to do their thing. You're saying you can't have 60-foot wide roads. It needs to be, we've got to have a hard stop. Other people don't like stop signs. So Well, I'm just saying that you're getting a lot of different, so everyone has a different perception.
Yeah.
So that's what we're here for, is to listen to see maybe there's a workable solution that we can extrapolate out of this.
I'm a little concerned with diagonal parking only because some of the vehicles are pretty long. I've got a fairly long truck, and
Mhm.
it wouldn't fit.
No, I don't think you don't have a parking problem, but what you can do, what some neighborhoods have done, is they've used parking to help narrow the roadbed a bit so that visually it looks like it's narrower. Because right now you have a 60-foot wide lane going down there. So
Yeah.
in areas, and that's where they use bulb outs, it doesn't physically narrow the lane, it just makes it look like it. So
Yeah,
people
yeah.
tend to slow down a little bit more. So parking is an option that you can use to.
How can you vote?
We don't even have a deputy around. No.
There's no speed limit sign. They
The,
say.
Yeah.
the sheriff doesn't do traffic enforcement either. So
I'm just.
It might put a bug in some of these people's ear. If you get 5 of them out of 100, you're succeeding.
Mhm.
You're not going to get them all.
No.
I mean, even the people um, that I like, I've told,
Mhm.
slow down a little bit. Come on, you know. And once in a while, I've been told, boy, every time I go by your house, I feel like you're watching me. Well, I am, you know, because you're driving on my street and I've got grandkids that are over here playing, and all them kids are going up to the tot light right now. Um, we got a nice little community. It sure would be nice to maintain it safely. And that Highway 1 over there, or I Street Highway, is as big of a problem as this one is. If you put one of them blinking lights up there to tell people how fast they're going, if it slows down a few, it'd be nice. Um, I sit on my porch, I read a lot, and I got plenty of time since I've retired, and I can tell how fast cars are going because I've worked in transportation, but the road condition makes the cars sound faster than what they're going too. So you can't be, always saying everybody's hauling ass. What I'm saying is the road could be fixed in a little better condition too, you know. But put me up some signs out there. Tell the people to slow down. And we'll see if the people are really wanting to stay out here and have a nice town to live in and be safe. And if we just get everybody slow down a little bit, it'll be a little safer, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Mhm.
Nice to have children.
Right. Some children playing sign.
Children.
Go ahead.
Hi, Teresa Sawatsky. I live on 3rd Avenue between H and I streets. Mandy Kent did not say people can do whatever they want on the street. That is not what he said. So please don't misquote people. So what I'd like to say is I agree with Buster. I don't think the roundabout does a whole lot. I don't think a bigger roundabout will solve that problem. The way the streets are and where people park, when you're going around to get around, it's just you're getting closer to the edge of the curb, to the edge of parked cars. And I don't want to red curb anything. I don't want to take parking away from people in that neighborhood. But I really think put some speed limit signs. There are none in Blue Lake except for on Greenwood. And I think put a 20 or 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. I think people are going to say, oh, I didn't realize it was that slow. I don't think young kids know what the speed limits are on residential streets. They're you know the rules. We know the rules. You've been driving a long time, but we need speed limit signs so people are aware. Also, I know I don't want to wake you up, Buster, but I really think maybe stop signs at that intersection, and also stop sign over on the corner of 3rd and H on H Street, coming around the corner, because cars fly around that corner too, by your house, Ann. They fly around that corner. And sometimes I'm outside with my grandson, where he's an astronomer, and we look at the stars. And we have to make sure we're far enough off because they cut around that corner where there's no sidewalk. That's another thing that we could get would be a sidewalk on places we don't have sidewalks. I think that would improve safety in that neighborhood because people we're like Marvin's house where he put those rocks up because people were driving next to his fence, got the mud all over his garage. So now he had the city put in those big rocks. We need to, maybe that would help slow people down. Put sidewalks in, put stop signs, put speed limit signs. That maybe that would help slow people down in our neighborhood. all I've got to say.
The same criteria as a stop sign? I mean, you have to go through a lot just to put a speed limit sign.
Yeah, you have to do a speed study. Part of the problem that we found with speed studies is it seems so ridiculous, but they actually take the average of the speed and that's what establishes. So if you have an area where people are driving faster, then you actually can see your speed limit rise. And that's really concerning, especially on something like I Street, because you're going to get people that are probably consistently going faster than 25.
That area, you know.
Right. And that's why I said 25 is too fast in Blue Lake. It really is. I mean, really everywhere in Blue Lake with the small, short segments of street and all of the intersection of usage, 15 is plenty. I mean, 15 on Greenwood, because we have the school and all the crossing, it's school zone. But really, if you're driving faster than 15 through town, you're still, going pretty good.
High Street is a straight shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
The wide street.
It's a wide, yeah.
And 25 would be slower than what most of them are driving.
Yeah, but I think if so, I would try going 25 and just and really see. It's pretty fast for town. It really is. That's for sure. So,
That's what our study period is.
right.
Driving up and down that road as fast as we can.
Andy Jones, here to speak about my interaction with iStreet. Two different capacities, one as a cyclist and one as a driver. So cyclist would be accompanying my child to cross iStreet because the school is on the fun part of town and I live over here on the quiet part of town. So we need to cross iStreet to get there. And we cross it at 4th Street. And it's scary to cross there.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you why in a moment. As a driver, going from downtown to the boulevard, I'm driving the speed limit because I'm a good citizen. But there are intersections that make it hard to see cross traffic. Okay, so what does it take to be safe? It takes the ability to react. Okay, the ability to react to something. What does it take to react to something? Visibility. And there's two things that impact safety in my mind, which is the visibility and speed. Those two together dictate how much time you have to react to something. Okay, so if I'm crossing First Street, I need to be able to see whether there's traffic coming. Traffic needs to be able to see me. Once I can see it, I know whether I have enough time to cross or I need to wait. Same with the driver. Okay, the ability to react. What would help me as a cyclist crossing First Street is to be beyond the parked cars that are on that side of the road. Okay, same as a pedestrian. If I'm same as a driver. If I'm driving down I Street, it's easier for me to react when I can see that there's pedestrians that are approaching the cross intersections. Okay, so what is it going to take for me to be able to see that there are pedestrians that are trying to cross? It takes visibility at those intersections. Okay, so I do want to red tag, not red tag. I do want to red curb intersections on I Street if I could. Now that doesn't mean parking needs to be taken away because it's a 60-foot wide street. Okay, there's other creative solutions to be able to maintain parking and to be able to have the visibility for drivers and pedestrians to react, because that's what makes it safe, the ability to react. In addition to that, sure, speed signs that the folks who aren't familiar with the neighborhood, let them know how fast, how slow they should be going, would be helpful as well.
Can you street view it?
Yeah, I can street view it.
What are your ideas around parking if the intersections are red curbed?
Well, I'm familiar with diagonal parking as a means to not only maintain the width of the street, uh, but to also preserve the amount of parking so that you can still see around the intersections.
Sorry, my big word went away in all my street view. Just so people could see what I mean, we know what High Street looks like. It's wild, right?
So yeah, my big takeaway, the ability to react. So how do you do that with the combination of reduced speed and increased visibility? Thanks.
Thanks, Ian.
Scott Farley again, 544th. Um, the stuff on H Street, definitely, I'm hoping that we can address that. I brought it up once already, but there's many times I've came home and can't get up the street to get around the corner to get to the house because people are parked there. I do think the one way or direction or the other would be a big improvement to safety. The corner up there is definitely really blind, and uh, it's just not a good situation. I'm actually kind of surprised over the years that there hasn't been a car down over the bank against the houses that are down below it there.
We
Look
almost
like
had a
they're an
truck not
arm's
too long
way to
ago.
me. So
Tried to get a guardrail there, but
so
through
anyway,
our
but
Caltrans, we replaced guardrails. I couldn't add guardrails.
Tree though.
yeah.
We had a truck that got rerouted and almost went off there.
So the stuff on I Street, the roundabouts that you got there now, hey, if they work, they work, I guess. The stop sign seems like a pretty reasonable idea as well. If everybody's into that, then doing it. I don't feel there's up in our area. I don't see, and I go towards the post office fairly regular, going out to the hot plant or whatever, and it's not like I see that the parking is all used up all up and down the street. The intersection you currently are showing there has some bulb outs on the corners, and maybe that needs to happen down at Buster's and the next one on down, and give you some visibility if you come up to the intersection to cross the street. And
I Street.
Yeah.
It's our house sitting there.
Yeah, this is 4th Street right here. So that's you guys right here.
Yeah.
so that
There's no cost there right now, but I assure you, there's at least 2 or 3 that are not paid.
Here.
Don't move.
Randy and Michelle's.
yeah.
And
So
the red curbing, I'm not sure how far the red curbing goes.
I mean, there's
don't
none
know
right
that
now.
There's a lot not parked too close to the corner, but I can't do it.
So I would question, hey, if we decide that we need to do some diagonal parking, it looks to me like you're increasing your risk of collisions from the people trying to back out of their diagonal parking out into the people running down the road. It may be minor, but I think it should be a concern as well. Mandy, you made a comment about the sheriff's department did no traffic control. I'm not 100% sure about that, but okay. So what do we got to do to get the highway patrol to come hang out 5 days a year or 10 days a year and move around town? That's something that might help the situation all over town. But when I was a kid, there was not very many days that there wasn't a sheriff roaming around the town. Did he write traffic tickets? I'm not sure, but I'm thinking if you were doing 45 down High Street, you were probably going to get talked to. But a few things like that would be helpful in the process, I would think. So
You can't tell by that picture, but you're going down I Street here. Our house Okay, back up. No, you back up to the, you can't tell us, directly across the street, there's the top lot.
Right.
Yeah, here's the top lot right
There
there.
you go.
There's your top.
So do you guys think a four-way stop would be better here or down at Buster's?
Do it on all of them.
Or do
I mean, the safe routes to school and Second
I
Street.
I think you'll make a huge I think you'll make a huge difference if you just do one down by Buster's. But
It's a short distance from our stop sign on Blue Lake Boulevard, and where people turn, that, they have to really slow down to turn.
Yeah,
on
because
that.
it's narrow, right? So that narrow, that slows people down because it's narrow.
So fast, it's coming
Just so
this
you can
way,
see, just
the
it
long
narrows.
straight stretch that.
See how it narrows up
Yeah,
between Fifth and Blue Lake Boulevard because
yeah.
of the
that's
redwoods.
Blue Lake
But
And you have redwood roots there.
yeah, you got that. Yeah, you got your own built-in speed bumps.
Yeah. Natural speed bumps
Yeah.
there.
So plant more redwood trees on High Street.
What's your opposition to multiple stop signs?
I'm sorry?
What's your opposition to multiple stop signs along the road?
One's enough.
People-
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Started. It gets
Why?
people running.
People
And you have 2 minutes.
But you can't have it both ways. You can't say I'm gonna put. Well, you can't have it. Wait, you can't have it both ways. You can't say we're gonna put stop signs in so people will stop, and then we're not gonna put stop signs in because people won't stop.
No,
Right?
I think what she
So-
said is one would be enough to slow traffic down. If we got at least one
Mhm.
on High Street.
In the proper location.
Right,
Mhm.
because Fourth Street isn't very far off from Blue Lake Boulevard.
So shouldn't it be farther down then? Yeah. Yeah.
Buster's.
I think you're definitely going to make a big change to what's happening if you got a stop sign down by Buster's.
Yeah. I
Okay,
don't-
so Buster's right here halfway. Like here's First Ave, right? This is the T. Post office is here. There's Blue Lake Boulevard. This is narrow. This little half block is real narrow.
Mhm.
So yeah, Buster. This is right now. We got the temporary. Right, I got it right. That should be third. Yeah.
Not Buster, you guys.
Oh, sorry.
Then I was Reuben, I'm Buster.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
So that's mid block, and again,
Yeah.
right now that's at least, and it's temporary. We're just trying some thoughts out of what can we do to improve, and so back to putting some obstruction or some feature to a visual cue. Like Andy said, it's sight distance, which is your visibility, and the speed that someone's traveling. Those are kind of the two factors for reaction time. So we're trying to get people to slow down. That helps with the reaction time is not as short. That increases the reaction time because they're going slower.
Elise Scafani, I'm going to read a letter from Lori and Dave Ponte. They couldn't be here tonight. So they would like to say thank you for the door hanger notification and invitation to attend the meeting. Unfortunately, they're out of town and cannot attend. Nonetheless, we are very interested in the feedback provided by Dan Burton. Safety measures are definitely necessary. Based on limited funds, city funds, it makes sense to start with stop signs at the intersections or both. Sorry, little tiny print on both H and I streets. Striping at those crosswalks would also be an important addition. If more extensive safety measures were implemented, would the existing sidewalks and parking areas be repaired or installed by the city as part of this project? We appreciate that the opinions of residents on these two streets are being actively sought. Dave and Lori Ponte. And I just want to say stop signs. I still like stop signs. And I'm not absolutely certain of this, but I wonder if, as part of our contract with the sheriff's department, if we identified a few target areas where we wanted some traffic enforcement, if they would be able to do that. And I don't mean like every day at 8 o'clock or something like that, but I think that I know it worked for me. If I'm driving too fast and every now and then I see a police car parked or somebody pulls me over and warns me, or God forbid gives me a ticket, I drive a whole lot different. I'm more mindful when I'm late for work or whatever it is. So I think that I've read the contract with the sheriff, and I believe that there's something in there that talks about asking them to do specific targeted work around the city, and I think traffic may be covered in that area. So I think that if we want to just start with speed limit signs, stop signs, and then see if we can't do a little bit of random enforcement, I think we might make a little headway. And I was curious too about the speed limit. Is 25 not like a standard speed limit for a residential area, or so we don't need to set a speed limit. We already sort of
We
have a
have
speed
one.
limit on the books. We just might not have it posted.
I do.
Well, I'm just asking the process for the speed limit because it was said that we had to do a speed study to set a speed limit, but we already actually have a speed limit.
It's 25.
Okay, so if we had those signs,
But what I'm saying is, in a lot of areas, 25 is too fast.
right,
And
that's
so
your
that's a
opinion,
problem.
and I understand that. And it's, if there's a little kid in the road, 25 might be too fast. But if we have a stop sign and we have posted speed limit signs, it at least keeps people aware of what's going on. I grew up in a neighborhood with a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. I mean, speed limit, and it was occasionally enforced, and nobody got killed on the road I grew up on, and we were out in the street all the time. So I don't know. I mean, maybe in some ways it's too fast, but it seems like it's a starting place anyway. And we could at least put signs up, and if people are driving 30 or 35 or whatever, and you get a 25-mile-an-hour sign up there and a stop sign, that tells somebody. It sends a message. It gets people to start slowing down. I mean, it's somewhere to start. We don't need to spend thousands of dollars on a traffic study or a speed study to put a sign up that just says, "Hey, this is your speed limit." Just my opinion.
Ridiculous.
Please slow down. And they said, but the speed limit 35. And we said, it's 25 in residential. Look it up.
You should see Northern Humboldt school bus comes through at 30, 35. And I've been wanting to go over there and talk to those guys. All you gotta do is go stand out there for a while, watch it. And then to watch people go through your turnaround is rather humorous at times. I've almost seen collisions with people making maneuvers going through that turnaround. I couldn't believe it. And they're just not thinking. A lot of them don't think behind that wheel.
Keep in mind, if you're making public comment, the microphone, in order to save public comment, it should be done through the microphone. Because otherwise, when the recording gets shared, your voice won't be heard if you're sitting back from the microphone. So if you want to be heard and want it to be able to, for any of these members to be heard, to where they can go back and listen to what you said, the microphone is there.
You guys want me to repeat? Go ahead. The people that drive around the turnaround aren't doing it very well. They don't know how to negotiate through a turnaround. And I've almost watched one guy come this way to make a short turn, and the other guy was doing the same maneuver in the same side of the turnaround. And I just went, they both had to stop. One had to back up, let the guy go by, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. So we got to address that one. Please.
One quick comment here. Mandy, could you check with the sheriff and see if he could deputize Buster and I, because he can get up on my porch with me and we'll get certified for radar. We'll write up the tickets. The city gets a percentage of the revenues. Problem solved. Thank you.
Relationship with the sheriff is they would come to my house when I was on vacation just to watch it. They're good friends.
Scott Farley again. My assumption would be if we have no posted street speeds around town, we basically have no speed limit. If it came down to a legal issue, and even at the 25, you're going to slow a bunch of people down on I Street if they paid attention to the signs. But if there was signs, potentially, hey, we can maybe enforce that a little bit occasionally a year, like I say, Can you get some kind of a grant that we can have the highway patrol come pass through for 10 days a year, whatever it is? I think those things are out there and available if you can find the right person to write them up. Maybe the sheriff's department can take care of it, whatever. And then, hey, let's look if you think 25 is too fast. Let's work on working it down. But if there's nothing there, I don't see you got much of a leg to stand on what you're trying to convince people they can drive through town at. Obviously, when you come down Greenwood at this point and the signs down there blinking at you, you're doing 17 instead of 15, which in the trucks or in my pickup or whatever, you definitely got to be paying attention, or it's really easy to roll through there faster than that. But I think that's a good deal. But I think some signs around town would be a pretty good scenario maybe to get started. And the stop signs on all High Street, I'm all for it if it's one in intersection or whatever. I think that'd be a big improvement over possibly what you got going. So, thank you.
Thank you, John.
My name is Ann Lawler, and I live on the corner of 3rd and H. And first, I want to say thank you for doing this and for all your time and effort, because sometimes it's a thankless job. So thank you. I think the stop sign at Buster's is a great idea. I love that idea. My sister-in-law lives across the street there, and I know that she would love that as well. Um, I have a teenage son, and I feel like for especially teenage boy drivers, sorry, but it's the truth, they're not really paying attention. And so I think a stop sign is a better option maybe than the roundabout. I think it will do more good. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, is there anything on H Street that you're interested in? I mean, that's another one where we have, a lot of people come really fast up the hill and kind of crest it right up by the preschool, and you're right on the same
Probably my
route.
son. What on H Street, what concerns me is the preschool, just the preschool concerns me just because we want families to be out there in their strollers and on their bikes and, taking their dog and making sure the kids are safe. And then we have the walking bridge. And so we do have a lot of people.
It's really
So
important.
it's a safe routes to school. It's
Yeah.
coming down to the footbridge, down I Street, down 2nd Street. So you go down
Right.
4th Street, I Street, then over to 2nd Street and across the footbridge. It's
I
probably
don't
the safe
see
route.
I don't see as much of, the going fast as just maybe not paying attention to all of the pedestrians and kids and strollers and dogs. So
Kim, working at the preschool, what are your thoughts on that area? Because I know it's getting late, but I mean, this is really an important area also to be thinking about.
Kim Johnson. The only thing I would have to say is I haven't had, that I remember, any families complain to me about the traffic and any safety concerns with getting their kids in and out.
Okay.
That's the only thing I can think of. There was some that didn't like us using the alley, as parents would like turn back around to go back to I Street.
It's the alley right here, right?
By the bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have heard that feedback, and we pass that word along to everyone. But that's really only the feedback that I've gotten from our families and from the neighborhood. I know that we probably generate a lot of traffic because we have up to 16 families coming and going twice a day. So I was interested to know if we felt like that was an impact. Yeah. That I can pass word to my families about slowing down or what we needed to do, any certain routes that we needed to take, that sort of thing. But I don't know of any concerns that I've heard.
Okay. Yeah, and it seems like most of the concerns that I've been hearing from the residents up there, it's usually people leaving in the morning to go to work and coming home at night from work. that seem to be kind of those hot hours. And it's
Yeah.
people who live in the area doing it. Scott probably, yeah. I was like, why do you take that route, Scott? That's weird. I know that on the corner at Scotty's place at Harnden's, that they've contacted us quite a few times about the possibility of making that, putting stop signs in here too. The Pontes have asked about that. So I don't know. We've talked about maybe making that a really just as kind of a combination feature, making that like an art square too, so it's a really defined, yeah, like a big artscape with the crosswalks, so they're very vibrant, and when you're coming up to it, it really gets your attention. And especially because that is such an important crossing. A lot of kids use the footbridge to get across and then get to school, so that area is a big issue. And what about you? You live right there as well. What are some of your thoughts? Sorry.
Sorry. Anna Brown. I live right next to Ponte's, across from Anne. Oh, that's before we painted it.
It's a great
I see a combination of things. I see people go too fast past the Ponte's. A stop sign would be awesome. I see them coming up the hill. We kind of get less traffic because a lot of people turn the corner. On what is that, third?
Like on second.
Yeah, they turn. I see people coming too fast down the hill and barely have time to make the stop. There is the narrowing of the alleyway. I would love to see that a one way. I was just thinking, like I said, when you did the Google Earth and I saw the scale of how big I Street is, and I'm not saying we should do this or anything. It's just an idea. I was like, I wonder if you lay this out on top of Arcata, because Arcata is every other section is either a stop or you have the right to go. I'm not saying we should do that with Blue Lake Boulevard, but it's an interesting concept of you don't need to have one thing. Maybe all we need is one thing, one stop sign, whatever. But why can't we do a combination of a few things? Why can't we try a stop sign? Why can't we try a roundabout? We're split halfway on who likes it and who doesn't. It's a long stretch, and there's not much that is slowing you down now. So I don't know. Throw a few stop signs in there. Have in the midst of it, have a roundabout. Go ahead. If it's gonna make you slow, they're gonna be people who are loving it. They're gonna be people who are hating it, and that's just the way it is. But I mean, if you have a truck, you're pulling a trailer. Maybe it is an inconvenience to have a roundabout in the middle, but dude, just slow it down. Go around it. It's really not that big of a deal. Yeah, I don't know. It's more I Street. Whatever you want to do in front of my house is fine. I'm fine with it. If it makes people slow down, do it. Go for it. If throw stop signs up there, throw a roundabout, do a painting. I mean, I know I used to work across from the creamery, and they have this beautiful mural in the middle of the street. It's gorgeous. I know by Ace Hardware in Arcata, because I used to work in Arcata, they have this weird thing that confused me. I think it's a bicycle wheel, whatever. It confused a lot of people at first because they didn't know what it was. It's slightly raised. It's a bicycle wheel, but it does make you pause a little bit, pay attention a little bit. Maybe you can look at, you see something ahead instead of your phone and make you slow down. I don't know. I don't know the solution. And I always hesitate to come up to these forums because there's a lot of people who see it as an opportunity to maybe disagree strongly with you. So I get a little bit hesitant to come up and say that. But for me, living up there, go ahead, do whatever you guys need to do to slow it down. It's welcome to me. Throw it all up there.
Thanks, Anna.
Oh boy, anybody else?
One more.
All right.
One more. Yeah.
All right, go for it.
Erica Dykehouse.
What was your name again? Sorry.
Erica Dykehouse.
And I just, I don't know if this got brought up because I was late coming from work, but they have those in Eureka. I've seen just a couple of the critical stop crossings. They have the lighted crossings where you can hit the button to have it flash on both sides. They even have it where it flashes across the road too. And I walk a lot in downtown Eureka from work, and it's really been helpful to get across the street in some of the more congested intersections, and to feel a little more safe in crossing those. I don't think that we have any that are for events. It would be really nice right here at Greenwood, and probably just considering where there's other places in town where we have events and there's going to be a lot of foot traffic, going, and a lot of traffic and foot traffic going together. Maybe having those lighted crossings, or where you have the school crossing there, where we just talked about on H Street in front of the school. The button that you can hit with the lights to really draw people's attention to the fact that there's somebody walking across the crosswalk.
But it's an option.
Yes, it's an option. Yeah.
But if it's not there, it's not an option.
Right, but I'm sure they're not cheap.
No,
They're
they're
not.
not.
Thank you.
We don't really make the ones in the street anymore. 'Cause they failed. I think I know Fort Bragg had like, because we used to have the one here in Blue Lake by the school, and actually that failed, and they're out of business, so we couldn't even get our warranty on that. But the ones they have like going by the school now, they're pretty universal now, and they work well. It's radio control, no light, the sign flashes, so it still visually catches the eye. They're on both sides, so you kind of have it on both sides of the street too.
Well,
They're not cheap.
thank you guys for coming. I mean, like, you can hear from the conversation, not everyone can agree on everything. And that's part of, the problem, but sometimes the city also just has to step in and make a hard decision. Not everyone's going to be happy with everything. But ultimately, I think the city and the commission are committed to improving safety in the community, and we recognize that there is a need. I have nieces and nephews in this community, and my son, and I get nervous just my son riding his bike in town. I mean, I didn't want him to ride his bike from my house on Charlton to school in the mornings. I actually would drive him to school because I didn't feel it was safe enough for him to ride his bike. And that's pretty sad, because as a kid growing up here, I mean, I rode my bike and my horses everywhere, and I never felt unsafe. And there was way more truck traffic and things that I intersected with than what my son is today. It's just a different type of driver that we're seeing. I'm grateful that you guys are here, and we're trying to figure some of the stuff out, and we don't have funds necessarily to do it. Sometimes we can capture some small grants. Sometimes we can just use some simple solutions. That's kind of what we're looking for at this point, while we're working towards some longer term objectives as well. So if you come up with anything else, please let us know. If there's other ideas, or you see something in another community, on I Street, one of the things we didn't talk about was making, even planting it like a planted boulevard going down the middle, like installing trees, or just making some nice feature elements that also makes that roadbed feel a little bit smaller, but just makes it a really pretty place too. Blue Lake's a pretty town, but there's definitely lots of opportunity to make some improvements when you look around. So yeah, so if you guys come up with something else, please let us know. We don't have any hard and fast solutions at this point. I think a stop sign makes a lot of sense. I think you just have to have those hard brakes. And that's why I'm a huge supporter of speed tables and speed bumps in town as well, because it's the only thing that I've seen that actually makes people slow down. And if you go over them too fast, good luck on your vehicle, but it does make people slow down in those areas. It sure does. So thanks.
Thank you. Oh, Thank- All right.
Let's move on.
I know. All right, we're gonna move on
Thanks,
to
Donna.
item 8, the Humboldt County Sheriff contract update, and then
Yeah, so I can just give a quick update just on the from my side, and then the ad hoc committee. We did have a meeting and went over some of the data and the current situation with the contract. As you guys probably know, there was some movement prior to last Tuesday's council meeting. Um, the sheriff reached out to the city and asked the city to basically he's willing to have a meeting with the city, also with we've requested our board of supervisors and the county administrative office also be involved to come to the table and actually have some discussions about reducing costs and finding a solution to the problem. So that is happening right now. We're working with the county to set up that meeting. We've also think it's really important that Trinidad's at the table with us, so that the two cities are being treated equally. And so I've had several conversations with Trinidad about, kind of our cooperative position. And so that is also taking place. So I think that's a really good and positive, um, action. I'm not sure how those conversations will go, but I think the position has softened somewhat to at least get us to a point where we can have, an honest dialogue and, and look for mutually beneficial solutions. Our goal is to obviously keep the contract with the sheriff. I would love to have better service for what we're paying currently. I don't know what that looks like we said, enforcement is a huge need. Having regular patrols is a huge need. Currently, that's not in our contract. So, and it's limited with the number of deputies that the sheriff has. So, but like I said, we're going to be going to the table to talk cooperatively and, like I said, find a beneficial solution for all parties. So, I want to thank the ad hoc committee too for coming together and crunching numbers and looking at solutions and just being able to bounce ideas off of each other. I think it was really helpful. So.
What's the timeline on that meeting?
So we reached out today to get that meeting set up. So I anticipate in the next 10 to 15 days we'll be coming together for a meeting. So we've asked that Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Madrone, and also a CAO representative be at those negotiations as well. So.
When you say we pay now, what do we pay?
So we pay $145,000, and we have basic service. We don't have dedicated deputies. We don't have dedicated patrol. So we're basically we have 911 service, and if you call and you can make a request for a patrol check or an incident, the sheriff will respond. But we don't have. In the past, we had paid a little over 320 up to 350, and we had two dedicated deputies that worked in Blue Lake, worked out of City Hall. That was reduced at the request of the sheriff because they had a staffing shortage and weren't able to fill those positions anymore. So they reduced our contract down to 122, and that was a few years ago. And then each year subsequently, there was a bit of a price increase. That's kind of an inflationary increase, and so the base level service didn't ever increase. The contract price did. And then in June, the sheriff wrote a letter saying that he was basically taking our contract from 145 to 315 with no additional services. So that's the area that we were really concerned about, that the city really didn't have the resources or the capacity to sustain those types of increases. And especially without any increase in levels of service, that was a really big jump. So we've requested to meet with the sheriff, and our position really has been that our contract is with the county of Humboldt. The sheriff is a party to the contract, but ultimately our contract goes to the county board of supervisors. So we've asked them to be involved in the negotiations for a new contract, basically. So I don't know if you guys have any questions. I think everyone saw the letter from the sheriff.
No questions for me.
As far as what the ad hoc committee, what was some of the things we found out?
So we agreed to start qualifying and categorizing the calls as they come in and get those into a format where we can crunch the numbers and have some actionable data. Right now, it's numbers and location, right? So it's the same thing that was being done manually, but we're going to put that in a spreadsheet format so we can start to generate some charts and things that make sense to people. And then we'll also do some work and some research to look at potential options. You know, kind of worst case scenario. We had a presentation from, I can't remember the name of the company that came in.
Pacific Coast Security.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which was basically private security.
Mhm.
You know, and just looking at options at this point. So, what do we have to compare against, if anything?
Okay.
Seems like at 145,000, it might not make a lot of sense, but when you get to 315,000, are you back to where it would make more sense to have your own on-staff sheriff or police chief or whatever?
Yeah.
I do think we had that years ago, and it got out of hand.
Just a little bit.
to say the least that
Yeah.
from a cost standpoint, 315,000 seems like a lot of money just to throw out there to not have somebody dedicated to you.
Yeah, it's, you know, the cost of law enforcement's incredibly high. When you look at Riadale and Ferndale, you know, they're in the $600,000 range to have a full department. Could we have something that was pared down, maybe a resident deputy? You know, there's opportunities that, you know, the city could possibly partner with another law enforcement entity and run a resident deputy underneath someone else's contract. There's some options, but the state of law enforcement across the nation is that there's just a huge shortage, and that shortage, so what you're seeing is we're not training a lot more officers. Departments are poaching officers from each other, and so you're playing with kind of a set pool right now, and there's not a lot of people going through the academies. People aren't wanting to go into law enforcement anymore. So especially for a lot of small cities, you just can't be competitive. You know, when you start looking at the workman's comp is massive for law enforcement. I think right now the deductible is like $1 million for workman's comp that like our insurance company covers for other agencies. I mean, it's just so kind of out of your capacity to even, you know, capture those costs or control those costs. It takes one incident to really blow the whole thing up. Most rural, smaller cities are going towards contracting with their sheriff, and it seems to work. You know, the sheriff is short-staffed. It's a big county. You know, we get that. You know, he's got a huge county to manage and with a small amount of resources. I mean, my own nephew is a sheriff deputy. You know, he lives right here in Blue Lake next door to me. You know, it'd be great if he could just be the Blue Lake deputy, but that's just not the nature of things. We have another deputy that lives up on Buckley, you know, but they're, you know, they're out in Garberville, they're in Hoopa, they're Willow Creek, you know, Soham. They're spread all over. So there is the ability though to look at private security. Pacific Coast Security could be an actual, I think, really good option for us for prevention, because a lot of what we have right now is we just have response, but we're not having prevention. So by the time the sheriff comes out to respond, the crime's already happened. So you're really just filing a report at that point. So could you prevent it by doing more patrols? I mean, these guys have vehicles that look just like, you know, a tribal cop or anyone else, and you have them on a dedicated patrol, a rotation. They're working when you need them. They're going where you want them to go. They could be preventing a lot of things from happening too, and you're still going to get your reporting capacity to the sheriff for whatever you need. So
So would Pacific Coast people have any authority though, or basically they're watch it happen?
they have
Down and
they have different levels of enforcement that you can work with them. So they can make citizens arrests. A lot of them, you know, are maybe retired law enforcement or have a law enforcement background. So they do carry weapons. They do, you know, they will hold someone in the event something's happening. It just depends. I mean, I think more what we would be looking for is, like I said, is just like prevention, like hitting those areas where we know that are dark at night, no one's around, and so you're getting the petty theft, you're getting those little targeted attacks because people know that there's no one there and no one's coming for a while. So if you had someone who was, driving around with a light and checking those buildings and checking those lots, that could go a long ways. But honestly, our crime rate is very minimal. When you look at, and that's one of the things that we've been doing. So we get these reports from the sheriff, and when you get them, it's a little bit deceiving because you look at them and you go, wow, there's a lot of calls. This is for like 13 days, 12 days. But then when you go through them and you actually highlight the ones that are not in Blue Lake, it's like 60% of the calls aren't even in our jurisdiction. So, and then when you drill down even further and you go, well, what are the majority of our calls? Well, it's a CAD documentation. So that means when the sheriff does drive through, so if he drives through Blue Lake to go out West End and make a loop, or he drives through to go up the old 299 to go up to Willow Creek, they'll do a CAD documentation. So it comes up as like almost like an incident, but it's really just like we went to Blue Lake and drove through. We get a lot of no reports, quiet on arrival, billable alarms. That's the most of what we have. So really, our crime rate is in the larger county context, it's a blip on the radar, if even. So that'll be something that the ad hoc that this commission is going to be looking at, is just getting those reports and synthesizing them down so we can really see what is really attributable to us, because we're literally surrounded by the county jurisdiction. It's like we're basically almost a neighborhood in the county at that point. When you really look at us, the county, they got to drive through Blue Lake to get to a lot of places in the county. So it's not really out of scope. And our contract was geared towards paying the cost of a full deputy. So that's where that number originally was derived from.
And for that documentation, if we can really get our handle on where things are happening and when they're happening, then when we have ideas about if a contract with a sheriff or a private company, then we can direct them to these areas that are consistently problems or seasonal problems or whatever.
Yeah, we also can look at, like, maybe we just need a street light, or, we need a camera or signage, or, stuff too. So there's a lot of opportunities once you really drill down on the data.
Public comment, or are we gonna?
Oh yeah.
We're just about there. I think actually we're ready for public comment at this time. So.
You don't have anything to say, do you, Ken?
No, I never have anything to say. At one time, we were able to afford what was just quoted, I think, $350,000. Currently, we get, I believe it's $157,000 from the state to be used for public. I'm sure that's been brought to your attention before. And if you look at the numbers as far as this coming up out of our general fund, it's obviously a less percentage than it used to be. We could afford it before. Now, it's been said we no longer have income from the Blue Lake Power, which is true. But on the other hand, we don't have any less need for law enforcement here. It's the last city council member meeting. I think the lady came in there during the meeting crying because she just had been, I think her truck stolen or something. If I remember, I was down in Mexico, a little iffy on the thing. We don't have less crime here than any place else, as far as I can tell. Maybe Hoopaw, a few places like that. Crime happens here. I've had literally over $30,000 worth of stuff stolen out of my building in the past. When I was down in the industrial park, Russo's took a hit for probably 100,000. We have 2 unsolved murders in the city. We definitely have a need for actual qualified law enforcement, somebody who can write a report that you would be able to take to your insurance company and file a claim. Or if there's an accident, you have to have a real report written. I don't think that the qualifications of the people, which I strongly support hiring them for certain use. They're quite a bit less money. I discussed this with Eli. Discuss things with him on a regular basis, what's happening in Trinidad. There are testing, so you can talk to Eli. Feel free to call Eli, get it directly from him. I am of the opinion that all you can do in your negotiation with the sheriff is say, well, we don't want to be covered for misdemeanors, and he may give you a price to reduce that. Or we don't want to be covered for this, that, or other. But these are all necessary law enforcement things, part of the puzzle. The only option, in my opinion, you would have, if you are able to contract for the same services you're getting now with, let's say, the city of Eureka, the city of Fortuna, the city of Arcata, or I think Ferndale and Rio Dela, the other two have their own law enforcement departments. Those people are paying $650,000 a year, plus they've already spent the money to create the law enforcement infrastructure you need. And I don't know, that's probably $1 million, just a total guess out there to have the cars, the radios, everything you need. So our best bet is to work with the sheriff. I think you're going to find that he's stated if you want the same service we have, that's a base rate, and you're going to go up from there because his costs are going up. I assume you're negotiating the next contract, which you can do, which I think starts in July. That's where we'll be negotiating the existing contracts at 315. You think the supervisors are going to say, well, we want to fund Blue Lake because they're so good people. We're going to take money from their deficit spending at this time to fund Blue Lake, to subsidize Blue Lake or Trinidad. I think you're probably going to find the supervisors, when I do talk with them, are not going to be willing to cut their budgets down just so we can have what we need to have for law enforcement. I think we're going to have to come up with another method. Possibly you're going to have to throw a tax out to the people. If they want law enforcement, they can pay a tax. Or you're going to have to find other budgetary measures coming up with your money. But that's about our only option here if you want to have any kind of law enforcement. I, for one, do. I'm not a defund the police. I want to feel safe in my home. I want my assets to be as secure as possible. And I have a great amount of problem with some of the untruths that are being spread about there by the sheriff. So they have an opportunity to speak.
Any other public comment on this? Police officer project?
Dennis Whitcomb. I agree with a lot of the things that Kent said, but I have a couple questions. Does the sheriff really want to provide city policing? You
He
know,
states in his letter he does.
and you said other city, he's doing it with other cities too, but
Mhm.
it seems like his staffing is up and down and all that. And I like the idea that Steph said about looking at contracting to a private company because at least it gives you some leverage in negotiating with the sheriff. And maybe you'll find out that maybe he's not that interested in patrolling our city or writing up misdemeanors or whatever else. So good luck with that. I think the other thing is the reports that he's giving you. I don't know what meaning you're going to get out of that, but he does have a lot of resources that you're not going to be able to afford here, like an investigation or that database that shows you where crime is happening, so you can focus more on that kind of thing. You know, if he's providing that kind of service in your presentation, that might be useful. And maybe get some status update on the murders we had out at the river. And see what the status on that is. But the other things you're talking about, we had foot patrols in the past that we talked about, lighting, cameras. Those are all good ideas, and that'll help out in the meantime, at least. And the final thing is on the budgeting process. It's this time it didn't seem like he was syncing with your budget development. Like you know, if you had known ahead of time how much money he was going to ask for, you might have been able to, like Ken said, maybe jigger the budget somehow or found additional funding. But I do agree with the tax idea. If we added another $20 to the water bill, for example, that might pay the difference that you got now. And on grants, I'm not sure how long these grants last. Is that a permanent grant from the state that we get? And maybe the supervisors can help you in getting that bumped up to a reasonable level, because our costs go up too. And the other cities you're talking about, like Ferndale, I don't know about Rio Dell, but they have a industrial base, so maybe they get some kind of a tax from the industry that we just don't have here. So our category of city would be on a lower level than these other ones. But partnering with them is a good idea, I think. Thank you.
Makes sense.
Thank you, Dennis. Any more comments on the Humboldt County Sheriff contract? Okay, we're gonna move on to item 9, the Powers Creek District project update and discussion.
Yeah, and I know it's getting late, so I'm going to try and just go through this really quickly. You guys have probably noticed that we started construction of the bike park. That was really exciting. It's going to be a really good project. We've got some really good experienced people helping us with the build. And so we're kind of wrapped up for the winter. So the mounds are the dirt is staged, everything's tarped, and the jump hills are half of them are in, and so we'll be the spring kind of picking that up again and going forward. So that's exciting. In the meantime, we'll be, continuing to do some fundraising and looking for opportunities to procure materials to keep that going. The Powers Creek restoration project is moving forward. Mike's crew is working on finalizing the design of that, and I think the goal is to bid that in the spring as well and go to construction in the summer. So that'll be a really
First phase for the Blue Lake.
yeah, for our section of the project. So that's a really exciting project. The Ottawa Community Project is moving forward. That'll be going to the Planning Commission. It's kind of running a parallel path with our housing element update, and that's all moving forward. We're kind of at the tail end on both of those projects, trying to wrap everything up and making sure that everything is in compliance so that that can be presented in the near future.
Any time frame for construction starting?
I don't right now. Probably this week we'll probably have an update. Just we haven't heard back from HCD for a little bit on the housing element. There were some programs that they wanted us to implement, and we were kind of trying to massage some of that. So that's kind of running parallel with the work that we're doing on the other project as well. Um, and we've got some movement on some interest on purchasing property in the district as well for development, which is exciting. And then we will be doing the master planning. We have a meeting on the 12th with Storyland Studios to do the master planning of the remaining parcels. And then we'll be moving forward with the subdivision of those parcels as part of the grant funding that we had received. So that's probably all I have on the Powers Creek district at this time. I don't know, Mike, if you have anything else or
No, I think that sums it up.
there's a lot going on. A lot of projects.
Okay. Any public comment on Powers Creek District?
Yeah, I go one thing. Dennis Whitcomb, I'd like to see if you could put some pea gravel on the far end of the trail that's moved closer to the fence because it slopes down a little bit, and as the rainy season comes here, it's going to be muddy and maybe people will be slipping and sliding there. That's it.
I know Public Works went out there last week. Dennis, have you walked it lately?
Yeah.
Because they did, and they used a tamper and stuff.
Just like some crushed rock or.
Yeah, was it still not adequate?
No, I don't think so. Well, there's just a short section that's
Okay.
a little sloped because it's up against the fence.
Towards the by Taylor on that end?
Closer to Taylor.
Okay.
Okay.
Regarding the bike facility down there, I drove by today. I was pleased to see a fence around that, construction fence. I think long-term wise, it's going to be imperative that you do have long-term fence in there. And that could end up being an attractive nuisance if it's open 24/7, 365. Kids like to go out at night. Kids will come from out of the area to come to places where they're unsupervised in a dark area. People say there's going to be development down there that would curtail that. I don't see that happening. So I think safety-wise, you may wish to make sure that that's secure down there as far as making sure that we don't have people coming down there destroying whatever you put in. There's a tendency for people to be disrespectful of those things, and you put together a nice thing and be ashamed to see it destroyed. Regarding the housing element, my understanding is that they are requiring us to go ahead and redesignate or put an overlay under certain areas of our town, which would enable the development to be done, higher density development with over-the-counter permits. Is something everybody's going to want to watch. I'm sure some NIMBYs wouldn't necessarily like to have a bunch of fourplexes, three stories high or three-story buildings in their backyards. And so this zoning is a very important thing everybody ought to participate in to make sure that we keep the rural atmosphere that we have in Blue Lake that I think a lot of us appreciate having here. And that's part of our general plan. One of the biggest things you see in our general plan, which goes back to 1986, should have been updated a while ago, but it's to keep a rural atmosphere. Until that changes, I think we're all entitled to see that we have that nice small town that we still have now without going something the same as a downtown, down south cities or something like that. I think we're here for the reason that we wanted to get away from that. They come up to me and speak.
Okay. Any more comment? Okay. All right. We don't have anybody here from Red Cross to do an update there. So we're gonna skip item number 10.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott. Um,
Night, Peggy.
and I guess until we get a new contact from Red Cross, we can just kind of keep that
Yeah,
off the table for now. I guess we don't need to do it for future.
right.
We haven't had anybody from the fire department in a while. They're busy, I know. But is there anything we should be monitoring on that or?
I can do a rundown of the
Yeah.
calls, but
And I'm hoping with Dan being on board as well, they're helping to kind of create that connection between the fire department
Okay.
because he's on the he's a captain and on,
Yeah.
that gives him he's a little bit more on the inside management stuff.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
so item number 9, agency check-ins. We don't have anybody from the sheriff's department today. Tuesdays seem to be like their days off, so it's hard to get an update from them. Sometimes they call in or Zoom, but we haven't been doing Zooms. As far as Blue Lake Fire, really not a lot going on. We had a few fundraisers that were pretty successful recently. We're always recruiting if you know of anybody. This last month, for the month of November, we were called for mutual aid on 3 structure fires in the Arcata area. I think all 3 of them we were called off. We did about 19 medical calls and 8 traffic collisions. So that was seems to be a pretty slow month based on not the
you said
numbers, but
that.
I said the name. I didn't say the Q word.
I know, but
But other than that, things going good. We've got a bunch of new probationary people there that are really gung ho. And exciting to see them flourish. And so, item 10 reports from liaison and staff. Liaison has departed. Do you have anything, Mandy?
I think
pretty much
that's
just
about
did
it. Yeah.
Okay. Then item 11, future agenda items. Guess an update on sheriff or the ad hoc committee, I guess. Does anybody have any other items for future agenda items?
Yeah, the stop sign.
Oh, update from
Yeah.
on this corner here.
Yes. Well, I guess maybe all of them, right? I mean,
Yeah, I think
I-
what we're going to do is we'll go back and as staff, we can, we'll meet with Mike and talk about what are some of the requirements and look at our local road safety plan as well and see if there's ways to build in to that plan, to use that plan to help support any installations. And we can look at signage is pretty easy. Stop sign would be a little bit more, you have to have an engineer's report and everything to back that up. So that might take a little bit longer, but we definitely could get some signage in the community about the speed limits and stuff. So
can we do a temporary tryout stop sign?
I don't know. Can you do that?
Is that easier to implement?
We'll have to look into it.
Okay.
Like one last, so we got a grant from HCOG for access to Dan Burton, and we've got, he helped us review the truck route. We still have a little bit of funds left that he's going to look through our LRSP, and we're generating some figures for him to kind of look at.
I think that's important. I heard those people loud and clear.
Yeah.
Like they really want that, and
it's
it makes
taken
sense to
notes.
at least try it. So I don't know if it's possible to sort of if it's faster and easier to try one and get some good feedback around that, and then work on a a more permanent one? You're the experts. So I don't know what's the best way to go, but I think speed is important here. Haha.
Yeah,
You didn't take public fire report, if you don't mind me going back.
sure.
How many of those responses that you responded to were actually within the 1 square mile city blue lake limit? This kind of gives me an idea whether you're similar to what the sheriff's doing as far as your response in your area that you're dealing with. Maybe you don't have that figure.
I don't have that figure.
If you can just a gut feel, was it less than half of them were within the city, or?
It's really hard to say. I mean, our district is huge,
Right.
and if there's a medical call, it's like it could be Buckley or up 299.
Sure.
You know, most of them are in this area or Glendale. So
It's just that the square mile of the city seems to be what we're trying to compare everything to within the city limits. And I'm just curious the ratio. So sometime in the future, maybe you'll have that number.
Okay.
That would be interesting.
okay.
Thank you.
Are you gonna have a meeting with like G Street people too?
Yeah. So we'll just kind of start taking it neighborhood by neighborhood base. Not every neighborhood has, a need. Like, there's some that are just small and stuff, but some of the larger segments, like I said, I and H, just because of the population density and the size of the roads and the calls that, we get a lot of calls from people that live in that area. So, but yeah, definitely G and Hartman. And those are identified in our LRSP as well. Some of those issues. So, working our way through the list for sure.
Okay. I'm sorry. I missed the first future agenda item. What was that?
Stop signs was the original one.
Sheriff ad hoc.
Ad hoc
Oh,
committee
thank you.
update. Are there any other future agenda items that anybody would like to see on the agenda? Okay. And then the basic, I mean, we'll layout that we usually do. Sorry. Excuse me. Hit the knife. Okay, so we're gonna move on to, if nobody has an objection, motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Seconded. All right, and if nobody objects, we're gonna adjourn this meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's always been paid for that.
All right, thank you.